Good morning, folks. We're going to just be a couple of minutes more because there's a technical issue with the screen. So if you can just be patient with us. We want to get all the equipment running so that it's a smoother meeting, but we'll start in a moment. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Councillor Stephen Holliday. I'm the chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. We have quorum. I'm now calling meeting number 8 to order. Welcome, everyone. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at the Etobicoke Civic Centre in the council chamber. This meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, Community Council would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. If you're registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Etobicoke York Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Members, the City Clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on CMP, the Clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need help with your devices. I also want to remind you to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at etcc@toronto.ca to help with motions. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please indicate the item number and the nature of the interest. Seeing none, we will proceed. May I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our meeting on September 18th, 2023. Moved by Deputy Mayor Morley. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that item is carried. Thank you. We can now go through the items. EY 8.1596 Renforth Drive Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application Decision Report Approval. That will be held for speakers. EY 8.2, 514, 520, 522 Royal York Road Residential Demolition Application. We have a speaker on that, so that will be held. EY 8.3, 26, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38 Burnhamthorpe Road and 45, 47, 49 Burnhamthorpe Crescent Residential Demolition Application. We have a speaker for that, so that will be held. EY 8.4, 34 Clissold Road, application to remove a private tree. We have a speaker on that item, so that will be held. EY 8.5, 115 Langden Avenue, request for a fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. We have a speaker on that item, so that will be held. EY 8.6, 272 Gary Drive, request for a fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. We have a speaker registered for that item, so that will be held. EY 8.75 Gaylord Avenue, request for a fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. Okay, so that particular item, I'll just check, is there any speakers here for EY 8.75 Gaylord Avenue, request for a fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447? Seeing none, I'll move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.8, 8 Golf Crest Road, request for a fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. We have speakers on that item, so that will be held. EY 8.9, appointment to the Long Branch Business Improvement Area Board of Management. Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're following staff recommendations on this one with the appointment of Bruce Davis.
Deputy Mayor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.10, 801 the Queensway, construction staging area. Deputy Mayor Morley.
We're referring this one back to staff. There's additional work required on this particular file. I'm not sure, clerks, if you can confirm if we can do that without a motion or if I need to send in a motion.
Do you want to hold it down, or do you want to just read the motion? Okay, sure.
Unfortunately, we can't currently display motions. I will read it out before you vote. That the item be referred to the Director of Traffic Management Transportation Services to report back to the July 15th 2024 meeting of the Etobicoke York Community Council.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 811, Ellis Avenue traffic calming. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I'll read the motion because you don't have the screen. Do you want me to read it or? Yeah, I have it, yeah. So, subject to favorable results of the poll, I'm asking for a poll to be done to authorize the installation of traffic calming speed humps on Ellis Avenue between Jane and Gibson, and direct the city solicitor to prepare a bylaw to alter sections of the roadway to install 3 speed humps on Ellis Avenue between Jane and Gibson Avenue for traffic calming purposes, generally as shown on attachment 2 dated September 2023, attached to the report, traffic calming Ellis Avenue from the Director of Traffic Management.
Okay, all those in favor? That's 3, 1 opposed. That item carries. EY 8.12, Harrow Drive, traffic calming. Councillor Nunziata.
Okay, so on this one here, it's the same. Do I have to read it again? Okay, for Harrow Drive, authorize the installation of, we're doing a poll on it first. Authorize the installation of traffic calming speed humps on Harrow Drive between Colford and Amesbury. Direct the city manager to prepare a bylaw to alter sections of the roadway to install 3 speed humps in Harrow Drive between Colford and Amesbury for traffic calming purposes, generally shown as attachment 2, dated August 2023, attached to the report traffic calming Harrow Drive from the Director of Traffic Management.
All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 1 opposed. That carries. EY 8.13, Queenslea Avenue, traffic calming. Councillor Nunziata.
I have a lot of traffic in my ward. I have all the highways. Okay. Again, authorize, subject to the favorable results of the poll, to authorize the installation of traffic calming speed humps on Queenslea Avenue between Rosemount and Walwen, south intersection. Direct the city solicitor to prepare a bylaw to alter sections of the roadway to install 2 speed humps on Queenslea Avenue between Rosemount and Walwen, south intersection for traffic calming purposes, generally as shown in attachment 2 dated August 2023, attached to the report entitled Traffic Calming Queenslea from the Traffic Management Transportation Service.
All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 1 opposed. That item carries.
I have to say that we hired a consultant, so we're doing a traffic calming study in that area, and we're having a big public meeting, so it's a real problem in that area.
EY 8.14, North Queen Street and Medulla Avenue / private access pedestrian crossing protection. Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, moving staff recommendations to direct traffic management, transportation services, for City Council to authorize the installation of traffic control signals at the intersection of North Queen Street and Medulla Avenue for private access.
Deputy Mayor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.15, Haimer Avenue, parking amendments. Councillor Crescent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on this item, I'll be moving staff recommendations, and I have a motion that I could read as well.
Please do.
Okay, so that Etobicoke York Community Council prohibit parking from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Following day on the south side of Haimer Avenue between Giles Court and a point 32 meters west of Wallace Crescent.
Councillor Crescent moves the staff recommendations, unless you change them. Oh, those were the staff recs.
Yeah, is that the same that you have here? Am I reading something different?
They were pretty similar. Okay, so we'll
Close enough?
if they're
Would you like to
identical,
read what you have?
we'll move Councillor Crescent's motion, and
Okay,
that's what we'll pass.
Thank you.
If you can give a copy to the clerk
Sure.
at some point, that'd be great.
Yep.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.16, Henley Crescent, parking amendments. Councillor Crescent.
Okay.
So you only have to read them if they're different than the staff recs.
Oh, okay. Then
Or go ahead and read them.
Then I'm not going to
We'll
read
compare
it.
the
So
note.
on Henley Crescent, again, we have the moving staff recommendations on this item.
All right, Councillor Crescent moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.17, Hickory Tree Road and Wilby Crescent stop control. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I'll move the staff recommendation. Do I have to read it?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll confirm with it. We're good if we don't have to read the staff recs. Yes, I'm getting the nod, so it's all good. Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.18, Jamestown Crescent Commercial Loading Zone. Councillor Crescent.
On this item, Mr. Chair, I'll be moving staff recommendations as well.
Councillor Crescent moves staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.19, 60 Photography Drive, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, this is where the go and the up is. Hopefully the Eglinton line will open soon. Move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.20, 50 York Gate Boulevard, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes. That's Councillor Peruzza's. Does anyone want to move the staff recs? I think Deputy Mayor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.21, 50 Ingram Drive, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I'll move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.22, 50 Humberwood Boulevard, 555 Rexdale Boulevard, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes. Councillor Crescent.
Move staff recommendations.
Councillor Crescent moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.23, 350 Grandravine Drive, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes. That's Councillor Peruzza's. Does anyone want to move that? Councillor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.24, 124 to 126 Rathburn Road, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes. Would somebody move that for me? Deputy Mayor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.25, 10 Eva Road, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes. Would somebody move that for me? Councillor Crescent moves that. Staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.26, 3100 Weston Road, amendment listing statement that will be held for speakers. Oh, pardon me, the clerk has reminded me that we need to vote to add that to the agenda, so the motion is to add that to the agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries, and that item will be held. Okay, we'll go back to the top of the list. EY 8.1, 596 Renforth Drive, zoning bylaw amendment application, decision report approval. We have some speakers listed. The first speaker is Nancy Green. Is Nancy here? Great. Welcome, Nancy. I think you've been to the chamber before, but welcome. Maybe not. I don't remember. You're out of the community consultation. Please come up to the front. You've got 5 minutes to speak to the community council, and you may begin when you're ready.
Good morning. I thank you for this opportunity to speak to my representatives that are building a city center. It's been a long time since February 2022 when the community was advised.
Yeah, the microphone's a little quiet.
Hello?
Even better. Okay.
Hello
What
again.
I'll do, I'll reset your time. You go right ahead. And Nancy, we're okay to continue? Great.
Thank you for this opportunity to express my views on this development. It's been a long time since February 2022 when the community was advised by teleconference that this development would be built, no discussion allowed. I learned today that the discussions were ongoing long before that time. I find it interesting that land was transferred without community knowledge and consideration. No for sale sign, almost an under-the-table transfer of land zoned for public use. After talking to my counselor and being advised that as my elected representative, he had no control or influence on this matter, he directed me to the planner. Obviously, planners are bureaucrats processing paper. They are not city builders or engaged in community capacity building. If elected representatives or staff are not influencers or responsible, we need to be very concerned about our communities. The planner received my concerns, but merely continued to fill the standard form for approval. I have considered the project and think that it is an innovative design and good use of land. I expect it to be duplicated many times. I just do not think it should be built on public use land at the most accessed entry to Centennial Park. It should not be built on the only piece of public use land left for possible development on Renforth. It should not be built on the entrance to Centennial Park, where we are investing millions of dollars for the enjoyment and use of many, not those able to buy $1 million two-story condo. It should not be built, as these 5 buildings will form 5 walls between Renforth and the park on public use land that has been open and engaging for years. It should not be built, as it will put at risk the access and safety for those using the sports fields and many other activities in the park. The community works very hard to provide these, and they will be detrimentally impacted by this development. The amount of development does not fit in the space in comparison to the existing community. It should not be built on the flight path, as their rooftop gardens may be hazardous for their health. The joy, community festivals, and people coming to enjoy and use the park needs to be nurtured and supported. When the subway is finished, maybe in 2031, who knows what this piece of public zoned land might be needed for. I urge you to read my letter sent to your offices in March of 2022. If you do not have it, ask your planner, Trista James, for a copy. My letter raised concerns of someone My letter raised concerns of someone who visits this location daily. I doubt she has ever visited the site except to put up the sign. Have you visited this site? Have you seen the impact of the entry into the park and how it will be affected by this development? With over 100,000 units being added to the Etobicoke Centre community and detailed in exciting and colorful maps by those who have no influence or control, I fail to understand how these 141 units on the entrance to the park would be missed. I expect it would be a very different matter if the entrance to High Park was having 141 townhouses developed. Centennial Park is a jewel for the community and should be protected and continued to be enriched. The mental health and well-being of many residents during the pandemic was preserved and protected by ready access to the park. Do as you wish. The residents will get used to the walls and the exclusion, but we could be doing better if we were city building, not just building. I am looking for the greater community good for this property. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Are there any questions for the speaker? I did have one. I'll just check with my colleagues. May I pass the chair to Councillor Nunziata?
Councillor Holiday, questions?
Thank you, Ms. Green, for speaking to us. One thing you mentioned a few times was you believe that it was zoned as public use land. Could you elaborate for my colleagues? Because they won't be as familiar with the site as I am, but could you elaborate on what you mean by that?
That it's for the community good. It's for an organization that's not residential. It's important that that land be seen as a resource for the community, and that could be, who knows, maybe we need a Cheshire home for the disabled. Maybe we need a daycare center. Maybe we need a marshalling center if the war continues. Who knows? Because that's the only piece of land that we could very easily use as a city. And when the subway comes down, my understanding is the sky's going to be the limit as to what we might want to do. Bus service will be coming there. I don't know what kind of services we need, but I expect that the city looks at that rather than just filling it up with houses now when we may need it. And I know rainy day funds never work, but the Masons have enjoyed that property for over 60 years. The public used that property as part of their park. And now it's going to be closed off. People will be streaming past the windows of those in the nursing home behind, and it just will change the flavor and the capacity of the community to enjoy and access. That's what I think.
Okay.
I'm supposed to express my view, and that's what I've done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday.
Okay, the next speaker is Caitlin Allen, Bousfields. Caitlin, welcome to the UICC. You have 5 minutes to speak. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of Community Council. My name is Caitlin Allen of Bousfields, and Bousfields has acted as the planning consultants for the owners of this property regarding their project. I am here with members of the ownership team as well as other consultant representatives, and we're happy to answer any questions that Community Council may have. So our client submitted a rezoning application in July of 2021, and they've worked with the city to refine application details to arrive at the final report today. So as you've read and as has been mentioned, the proposal is for 5 residential buildings. Each will have a height of 3 stories, and in total, there will be 140 stacked back-to-back dwelling units. In my opinion, the proposal represents good planning for this property. It will introduce new ground-related housing at a scale that's in keeping with the official plan's neighborhood's height limitation of 4 stories, being that it's only 3 stories, in a location that's well served by infrastructure and amenities. The proposed new buildings, given the site size, will be able to be appropriately separated from each other, and will also be appropriately separated from adjacent property or buildings on adjacent properties, which will allow for appropriate considerations respecting light and privacy. And it will contribute to an attractive public realm on all 3 frontages, including a landscape program that will have new coniferous and deciduous trees planted. And I'm happy to speak in more details, but those are just a few high-level comments. One thing that I will note is that a site plan application has been filed. So through that application process, the owners are aware that a construction management plan will need to be developed in detail. So that will provide the opportunity to consider some of the details and process related to the construction of the buildings. So in summary, we wanted to thank all the work that staff have put into this application, and we support the findings of the final report and respectfully request that Community Council adopt its recommendations. The owners are anxious to move to the next phase in order to start moving the new housing forward, so we hope that we can work closely with city staff to bring forward the site-specific bylaw as early as possible, ideally at the next city council when this item will be considered. And we also look forward to wrapping up the site plan application quickly too, as there's just, but we know there are still some refinements to work through. So thank you for your time. And again, myself and any of the representatives are available for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Councillor Crescent?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just have one clarification on, I'm just reading the section on school boards, and we're seeing this more and more on various different developments, where it says here that the TDSB staff has determined that there may be insufficient capacity to accommodate students, and that a sign's going to go up to advise people. As a developer, what steps do you take to ensure that families that move into that community are going to be able to send their children to school in close proximity to where they live? Because it's obviously a real problem. I see this issue repeated even in other developments across the city. And it's probably not a question that we can deal with here. It could be a bigger issue with the school board that needs to be addressed. But just your comments on that.
Sure, and through you, Mr. Chair. You're right, this is something that the TDSB, as different areas grow, are trying to adjust in order to accommodate, and I think it is a much bigger issue than just this application. As part of the submission, our office did submit a community services and facilities study, which was reviewed by city staff, which outlined the anticipated projected number of student or school-age children coming from this development. And, you know, based on existing capacities and the projected numbers, there wasn't necessarily space for accommodation, but I think that working with the TDSB, we can, it is an ongoing conversation about what the capacities will be like by the time this development actually comes online. And I think it's just important at the outset to provide that communication to potential residents to know that there may be adjustments that need to be made in terms of accommodation. But it's something that city staff are aware of. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Just curious, when will this development come online, approximately any time frame? Assuming everything gets approved, you get a green light, what does it look like?
I'm probably not the best person to ask in terms of construction, but and construction timing, but I do know the intent of the owners right now is to try to move forward as quickly as possible once all the approvals in place to construction. So the intent is not to wait to start construction.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Councillor. Any other questions? May I, Councillor Nunziata?
So you heard the deputant before you on her concerns about the public space and private. So can you just comment on that?
Sure. So this is privately owned land. It is zoned institutional by the bylaw, which is a zoning category that has been in place since the Etobicoke bylaw was established to essentially reflect the Masonic temple use. You know, that is a nonprofit. That was a nonprofit use, but still privately owned. The institutional zoning does permit a range of uses. So just to clarify in terms of that, it's both private uses can be considered as well. So the title is not only city-run use. That being said, it is a private property, and the application has been made to rezone it to residential uses in order to develop new housing on the site that otherwise is just sitting vacant. So that hopefully that kind of helps clarify in terms of the language of the zoning that's in place right now and what is being sought instead.
Thank you, Councillor. I wondered if I could ask a question as well.
Councillor Holiday, question.
Thank you. There was a little bit of lead-in on the previous speaker just around the exchange of the land. Community Council and City Council doesn't know those details because it's not in the report. But could you just even in the most basic terms, it was talked about being a public use and that there was a sale that occurred. Can you just tell us maybe some of the facts about how the property changed hands?
I personally don't, through you, Mr. Chair, do not know the details of that information. However, I do have representation here from the ownership group, if that's important to be heard by community council.
Just respect to the procedures, we can't, but maybe in the simplest sense, was the land privately owned before?
Yes.
Okay, so it wasn't owned by the city. And so that was the Masonic temple, right?
That is my understanding, that it was privately owned, but it was certainly operated by the private user, which is the Masonic temple.
Okay. And so a sale occurred from one private entity to another private entity.
Yes,
Okay.
between two private entities.
Right. I just wanted to be clear about it, that from your knowledge of this, it has nothing to, the city wasn't involved in the sale transaction.
No.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I just don't want to at all say potentially
understand.
inaccurate information, which is why I'm looking behind me here to.
That's okay.
But yes, so privately owned lands, which were being operated by a private owner through the Masonic temple, it was then sold to these private owners, who are my clients.
And in your experience as a planning professional, that's a fairly routine thing, right? One private owner to another private owner, and then those lands are, applications are made for development.
Absolutely. And, nonprofit owners and providers are still private owners. So as a planning professional, I've seen on many occasions lands transferred through private sale from one group who maybe their business is operating in a certain way, but they're still private landowners, to another private landowner.
Does the city have control over those sales? Can we become involved?
No. And I don't think that, there's no room between two private landowners for the city to become involved.
Okay. Thank you. That was all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks.
I have one more speaker. That is Georgina Engineer. Welcome, Georgina, to the EYCC.
Thank you.
You have 5 minutes. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. By way of introduction, I live in Markland Wood, near Bloor and Mill Road, and I learned to ski at the Centennial Ski Hill, and I volunteer at the Friends of the Conservatory, and I wrote a letter to Stephen Holiday in February of last year about this project. My concerns are location, density, noise, park events, and schools. With regard to location, 596 Renforth Drive is adjacent to Centennial Park, which is low-lying land. It is near two creeks, Etobicoke Creek and Renforth Creek. These creeks both start at the slope of the Oak Ridge Moraine. The creek water travels 38 miles south to Lake Ontario. A lot of this soil, I'm told, is silt, which is why it was flooded in 2013. It was the worst storm since Hurricane Hazel in 1954. Many houses got flooded, including ours in Markland Wood. 2/3 of the homes on our street got flooded. The garbage that people removed from their basements and crawl spaces lined both sides of the street. I understand flooding of homes extended as far north as Eglinton Avenue. Density. The plan is for 596 Renforth Drive is to build 140 stacked townhouses after the Masonic building is either moved or torn down. There were supposed to be 185 car parking spaces for underground. Yesterday, when I stopped by and read the sign displayed on the lawn next to the street, a sticker had been placed over the parking space number, and it now read 177 spaces for cars and 106 spaces for bikes. The people who buy these townhouses can enter the underground shared garage with their vehicles. There's going to be one elevator to ground level, I was told. Noise. 596 Renforth is under the final descent path for airplanes landing at Pearson Airport. It's between two north-south runways, one over Bourdale United Church and another over nearby businesses and homes in Mississauga. When the weather gets really bad, the noise is awful. These runways are also used when one of the east-west runways is having its tarmac repaired or redone, and that happened in late 2022. A resident near the Renforth site told me that there's often car racing at night and motorbikes along Renforth Drive. Yikes. Park events. Many large soccer, baseball, golf, and football games are held in the park. Rib Fest and other events also take place there. Why? Because there's lots of space and good car parking lots. There are 8 tall halogen lights in the park, which can stay on till 11 p.m. at night. Schools. Will the local schools be able to handle the additional students these townhouse complex will likely provide? When the stacked townhouses at the East Mall and Burnhamthorpe Road were being built, TDSB, with its Apple logo on the sign posted outside, said it could not guarantee the children residing in the townhouses could be accommodated in existing schools. For a long time, some of the townhouses were unsold. In conclusion, one resident of the 596 Renforth Drive area said, "Yes, we need housing, but we're building it in the wrong places. I could not have put it better. I see our parks, such as Centennial, as extensions of the Greenbelt, which we should not be encroaching on." Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us today. Those are all the speakers that I have listed. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on 596 Renforth Drive? Seeing none, I will ask my colleagues if there are questions of staff. Okay, may I pass the chair?
Councillor Holiday.
Thank you. Excuse me, questions of staff? Could we just have a very quick overview of the mechanics of what's being asked of community council? Currently, I think the zoning is institutional within the neighborhood's designation, and I wondered if you could just explain to council, even if there's parallel examples of what's before us today. And if there's any ability to comment what could be built there today without approval of council, just by going right ahead.
Sure. Back to you, Mr. Chair. So you're correct. The official plan designation for this site is neighborhoods. So it does allow for an array of residential type uses. It is zoned institutional, as was stated by the applicant's representative. And further to what she said, institutional uses aren't necessarily all government or public types of uses. For instance, you could have an art gallery. You could have a retirement home. There are many uses. In fact, there are more uses in institutional zoning that are actually run by nonprofit or private than they are by public. So it is possible to have a residential type use even in an institutional zone, for instance, a retirement home. So what you have before you today is just the zoning, asking community council to consider a change in zoning from institutional to residential multiple to permit the stacked development and to provide for the performance standards, the setbacks, the height limits, et cetera, around that. At a later stage, we will go through and complete the site plan control process, which will get into the finer details related to what will eventually get a building permit for these lands.
Can you tell me today what's the current permitted height on the site?
I might ask I don't think I have that off my head. Oh, the current height limit's 15 meters.
15 meters tall, so the proposal is less than that right now.
That's correct. The current proposal is under 11 meters in height.
Okay. There was a point raised about parking spaces. city council changed the requirement, how many parking spaces are developers required to build on residential applications today?
Well, the common myth is 0, but actually there are provisions in certain parts of the city that do require a certain amount of parking. Certainly what council passed with its parking review bylaw a year or so ago significantly reduced the parking requirements on new development as part of changing the modal split to get for more transit use, bike use, etc. This proposal here actually has more parking spaces than it has units, so it's in fact very well served by parking. It certainly will more than meet the demands of the units proposed with this development.
There was a point raised about concerns over noise. I know the park very well, the neighborhood very well. Has that been thought through in this application?
Yes, the site is within the noise exposure forecast area for the under the GTAA regulations. As part of any site that's within that noise contour, we undertake or require noise studies be provided. That work was done by this applicant, and such studies were provided to the city. And while there's not an issue, of course, with the contour in terms of flight path obstruction, it's not like there's a tall building here. The consultant did say there would be higher than normal amounts of noise, but something that ultimately is acceptable with certain provisions, warning clauses, perhaps some measures with the development at the site plan stage where we will ask for a certain type of glazing in the windows, etc., so that it will reduce the noise issues affecting the residents that will live in this development.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of staff? Councillor Nunziata?
Just on questions by Councillor Holliday. So if a development, just for clarification, because I get this all the time when we have meetings. Okay, when you have a development right next to the GO station and Up Express where there's transit, so just give me a percentage of the parking requirements. Do you know?
Well, there was a time, previous bylaw requirements usually were 1-to-1 or
Yeah.
or,
So what is it
8.
now?
Oh, now, if you're within a certain distance of higher order transit, generally within 800 meters,
Yeah.
we're seeing lots of development with 0 proposed. And in fact, council's passed many with 0. I think our challenge has been with some of those developments that we want sufficient visitor parking.
Right.
And there is a natural demand for some parking in these buildings to some degree. What applicants are seeking is that the bylaw doesn't require a certain amount of spaces, but when they build the development, they're not prevented from providing more parking depending on demand from the sales
Right,
of those
okay,
units.
okay. Because that question is always asked. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go to speakers. Any members wishing to speak? Okay, I will speak if I may pass the chair to the vice chair.
Okay, do you want to do it or do you want me to do it? Okay, Councillor Holliday to speak.
All right. I have a few motions. The first motion, and I'll just summarize, it's a very routine one. Oh, good, we've got the screen. The first one does not allow for the future residents of this location to be able to apply for on-street parking anywhere. And it asks that the development process include warning clauses for the purchasers. The next motion is speaks a little bit to the details of the report. There are some changes that are contemplated for Centennial Park Gate, and this asks that that the General Manager of Transportation Services coordinate and consult with the local councillor in the community on any of those changes. The third motion asks city staff to consult with the local councillor on the construction management plan to ensure that it meets the needs of the local residents, institutions, and park users. And the fourth motion is just a rather simple one, and it responds to some correspondence that was provided by one of the neighboring residents, because I think he wanted a tree to be planted on Renforth Drive between his house and the development. And that's just an ask of staff to do that.
I'm sorry, yeah, I was just speaking to Councillor Pruitt, so sorry.
So just, I thank the speakers for coming today. I realize through this process, not everyone agrees with what the proposal is before us. And I, even admit, when I first saw this, my instincts were the same. Boy, I'd really like this to be part of Centennial Park, but as I looked, it's not. I'd really like there to be maybe some sort of an institutional use that's there today, even though the Masonic Temple was not an outside-facing. It was, it was an organization, a not-for-profit. That'd be great. But the fact was, somebody bought the property with an intention to develop it. And then I thought a little bit through about what is being asked of council. And when you look at the city's official plan maps, you find out this is neighborhoods, and that's not a surprise. To the north, there's a school, and then beyond that, there's a fire station and some houses. To the other side of the street, there's houses. To the south, there is a retirement home, there's a church, and there's more townhouses. And so it is a neighborhood. And then the question is, well, do you allow for an infill development on a site that is otherwise used for something a little different? And I thought about, where have we seen this before? And it happens all the time in the city. Some of the cases you see is like when a church closes down and there's houses all around it, and you look at it and you say, well, what do you do with the site? And often people do an infill development. And so that's really what's before us today, or, is community council and the city council okay with that? We've received the advice from our planning staff. They're recommending that change occur. And they've laid out all of the details in the report about what will be built and what could be built. And then, we go to the next layer and we think about all the details of the site. How big is it? What's the shape of it? What's the setback? The parking, parking is a big worry of mine. Is there going to be enough spaces to make sure that the needs are met? Because I don't want the visitors to park in the Centennial Park parking lots or park illegally on the road, because we'd have a larger problem. But the advice I got back from staff was that this developer has provided an adequate number of parking spaces in the underground. And so putting that all together, I realized, not everyone is going to agree with these applications, but on balance, council needs to read the wishes of the community, the type of advice that we receive from our planning staff, and we have to think through and balance all of those pieces together. So I will be supporting the application. I take the staff report, and I really look to all the advice that everyone has put together on this. The last thing I would say just on my motions, they are, you'll see community consultation weaved into a couple of them. And that's because as this process unfolds, I look forward to staying in touch with the community who can best provide advice about how that road should be modified. And according to one of the submissions online here, the concerns of the neighboring landowners and all the people that use the space with respect to how the construction will unfold. And I'm confident that there will be an opportunity to work together as this process unfolds. So with that, I will thank everybody for their participation in this process, and I will just check with the clerk who we've got all the pieces. Yes. Yeah. So there should be 4 within the staff. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just a sec. Do we have any questions for Councillor Holiday? Okay, I'll pass the chair back on to you.
Thank you. Okay, so the recommendations, I guess we're going to try to get them on the screen. Great. So the first one is the parking one, and then at the bottom, I think we have the 2 recommendations with respect to the site, the construction management process and the design of the road. And then there was one additional motion that just asked Urban Forestry to look at planting a tree, and that was a response to a particular resident who made a request. Okay, all those in favor on the first amendment? That amendment carries. On the second amendment? That carries. And on the item as amended, that carries. Thank you. Okay, the next item is EY 8.2, 514, 520, 522 Royal York Road Residential Demolition Application. We have a speaker registered. That is Adam Rogers. Do we have Adam online or in the chamber?
Councillor Booth's the one with the deputation.
Adam Rogers, it's Stephen Holliday, the chair of the EYCC. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome to the EYCC. You have 5 minutes to speak. Please proceed when you're ready.
Okay, I'll keep this very short. Basically, it's the same information I sent in my email, but straightforward. There doesn't seem to be any need to push this demolition forward based on the report that was submitted. As we're all aware, anything of any construction nature will could lead to increased traffic, could negatively affect the neighbors based on noise. There's no haste to do this. Why not? Let's get the permits. Let's get all the permits in order, and then just do the demolition all at once. It'll save the neighbors that extra time, and since we had, it also hopefully push the incentive to the developer to get this done sooner. Because as we all know, we've increased the vacant home tax, which is part of the reason is to increase development. So if we put this forward, there's a bigger chance that it'll be an empty lot that sits there while they and there's no guarantee that they're going to move on this anytime soon. So this will put the fire under them to get this done faster. That's my opinion on this site. Again, just for the people in that area, they don't have to be subjected to two separate incidences. Let's do it all at once. The permits, they're just waiting for permits. It's on its way. They can wait a little longer for those traffic that can be caused in two separate incidences due to this, and just the nature of the fact that this will put an incentive on the developer to get this permits expedited as soon as possible. Because as it said, and as I said, the report itself said there is no need to this be done right away. And I should also note that if there is a concern about these sites, they always had the right to rent them out if they wanted to. They decided not to. They decided to let them get to the position they are. That was their choice. If they wanted to recoup losses, they could have rented these properties out. That's all I have to say on that one. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Adam. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. I'll just call. Are there any other speakers on this particular item? Seeing none, we'll take it into committee. Questions of staff. Councillor Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Just to pick up on our deputant's point around the status of any future development of the site, can anybody provide an update? Yeah, thank you.
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor. Yes, we are processing a rezoning application for this site. It's a proposal to construct four main buildings. They range in height from 10 to 35 stories, but there's sort of lower height components to it. It's almost 1,000 residential units. The applicant has appealed it to the OLT. Nonetheless, we're still working through this. At this stage, my recall is we have not received a site plan control application in yet. So we're not close to building permits yet.
Thank you. And just to follow up on that, would it be reasonable to defer until such time as we have more as it relates to the zoning bylaw amendments in place? Because again, the sense that I have is there's not an immediate rush for the demolition, and we're leaning towards deferral. Do you see that becoming an issue for the delays to the process?
Through the chair, I don't know the motivation behind wanting the demolition at this stage, probably to clean the site ahead of time. But it's not that it's required because there's an imminent need to do so at this very moment.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of staff? Okay. We'll go with Councillor Nunziata first.
Just one question on the, it's at the OLT now, you said, right?
Yes.
So at the OLT, they could approve the demolition, am I right?
I actually, through the chair, don't know the answer to that question. I don't
I
know.
was just very curious on your answer. Can they?
I don't believe so.
So the application now is at the OLT. So my question is, can they, the OLT, can they approve the demolition if we don't do it? Like, is it part of their appeal?
I am through the chair. I'm not familiar with the specific appeal. My understanding it would be it would just be the planning application that's before the OLT. The demolition application is something that's usually handled through the building code and the Building Code Act. So I would think, and I could look into this in more detail, but I would think that the recourse from that is to the courts by taking the CBO to a court application rather than through the OLT.
I was just curious. Yeah, because this never happened before. I've never, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Crescent.
Just a clarification on the recommendations. Well, first of all, when somebody applies for a demolition permit, isn't there a requirement on that demolition application to explain why they want to demolish at this time?
Chief Building Officials got some information for us.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
In accordance with the demolition control bylaw, in order for someone to obtain a demolition, they need to first obtain their permit for the replacement building. And if they don't do that, then they come to council requesting reasons why they're looking to demolish it ahead of having that replacement building permit.
But they haven't given those reasons.
They, excuse me.
Not that I can see.
So to my knowledge, they haven't given the reasons other than there's vandalism, there's upkeep of the buildings, there are vacant buildings. So they're having some issues on the site in that regard. But there's also a rental housing agreement that's in place that requires them to get their building permit, replacement buildings, prior to getting their demolition permit. So.
Okay. All right, and thank you. Just one more thing. So the recommendation says to refuse the application to demolish the vacant residential building, and because there's no permit, as you just indicated. Then second point is to approve the application to demolish. Are we talking about the same building? You're saying refuse, but then approve? The third says approve the application to demolish with
So,
conditions.
Point of clarification, through Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So there are three options that council can choose that were
So
put
we're gonna
forward
choose
to
one of
council.
these.
So yes.
Okay.
So those are three options that council can consider, and then it's up to council to decide which option, or if you want to amend one of those options, you could do that as well.
Okay, then that'll be up to the deputy mayor to pick an option for us.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions to staff? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor Morley to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to staff for preparing this report. We are not confident at this time in moving forward with the demolition. However, I am hesitant to deny the application. I'm looking to defer, so allow a little bit more time with staff as well as with the applicant to get closer to a potential confirmation of their future permits for new buildings. Are we able to defer, do an alternate rec to defer this item to, I would say Q2 2024, to allow us some time again to connect directly with the applicant, allow their process with OLT and others to proceed, and hopefully by then we might have some additional clarity on the future of that site and more confidence in moving forward with the demolition. July. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Will the clerks finalize that? I'll just check. Are there any other members of council wishing to speak on this item? Nope. Okay. We'll just give it a moment. We'll get that motion typed out, and we'll vote on it in a sec. There you go, Deputy Mayor. The item be deferred to the July 15th, 2024 meeting. That's your intention? Great. Okay, this is a single vote, right, Madam Clerk? Yep. So on the item presented by Deputy Mayor Morley, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, EY 8.3, 26, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, Burnhamthorpe Crescent and 45, 47, 49 Burnhamthorpe Crescent residential demolition application. We have a speaker registered. That's Adam Rogers. Adam, it's Stephen Holliday, Chair of the UICC. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Welcome back. Please go ahead when you're ready to start.
I'm ready. So I'll keep this short. This has been a problematic site for the neighbors of Islington Village. I know the site very well, grew up in the area. It's straightforward. It's already been appealed. It's going to go through. I get it. But there is no haste to get this demolition done. I've seen the site many times. There is no there's no vandalism of any nature. The site is still in good state of. Oh, I haven't been on site obviously, but from the report, the site is still in a state of. It's still in a state that it doesn't require immediate tear down. They, as I said in the last choice, if they wish to recoup their losses, they could have rented these properties out. They chose not to. That was their choice. I should also say that that location is right on the curve of Burnhamthorpe going into to Dundas. That is a very major traffic area. The amount of time we can reduce to construction of that area is ideal because any lane held up in there is going to clog traffic up, especially during rush hour. I know that area very, very well. It is always backed up for left turns. So let's get it all done at once. They're getting their permits in order. There's no haste to get them done. Let's get all their ducks in a row, get it all done at once. It's as straightforward as that. I appreciate their expediency, but based on the report, there's no need for it to be done right now. It can be held off until they get their permits in order. I imagine they're pretty close to that. Once it's done, follow the rules like everyone else. And I do see there was a report from the police that they appealed to, but I can note that there hasn't been no reports of vandalism in that area. I think I appreciate the police concern on this one, but I think this should put a fire under these folks to get this done. This has been pending for a long time, and I get they probably feel some frustration. So let's do the permits in order. Get your permits, do a demo. Everything at once and save the residents of that area from further delay and further traffic. It's going to happen. Let's do it when it should be all in order. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us today. Are there any other speakers on this item? Okay, questions of staff? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor Morley to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again to our debutant for his participation here today. I will respectfully disagree on this one. We do have an application that's a little bit further along in the process, and as we've heard from other community stakeholders, the intention of the applicant here to move forward with demolition does feel appropriate in terms of timing. So I will be moving recommendation number 3 of the report to approve the application to demolish the vacant residential building with conditions. And clerks can have those on screen now. So the conditions are listed above, and that's my motion today. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Morley moves recommendation number 3, which is the demolition with conditions. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 8.4, 34 Clissold Road, application to remove a private tree. We have a speaker registered. The speaker is Ivan Kraljevic. So Ivan, welcome Ivan to the UICC. You have 5 minutes to speak to Community Council. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. So I'd like to take this opportunity to discuss my application and bring up some important elements that the Urban Forestry Report omits. The first thing to note is that the tree in question is a Norway maple. What the Urban Forestry Report doesn't say is that the city considers these an invasive species and that the city has been waging a decade-long campaign to reduce their number. As an example, the city's canopy study from 2018 reported that on account of deliberate measures taken by the city to diversify away from the species, the proportion of Norway maples lining the city streets was reduced from 22% to 13.5% within a decade. That same study stated that the Norway maple can outcompete native species. The Urban Forestry Report also omits to mention that the City of Toronto has adopted a strategic forest management plan, and one of its 6 goals is the increase in biodiversity. The report also doesn't mention that Toronto's strategy has as one of its goals the removal of invasive species. In short, the report's recommendation to deny the request flies in the face of the city's strategic goals of increasing biodiversity and is contrary to its own actions of aggressive removal of this species from city property. The Urban Forestry Report also doesn't mention another of the 6 goals of the Strategic Forest Management Plan, that of achieving equitable distribution. I take this to mean that no single property owner or neighborhood is overly burdened with an invasive species. For context, the backyard in question is about 30 feet by 30 feet in size and contains 6 full-grown maple trees, 5 of which are Norway maples. The 2 neighboring backyards also host Norway maples. On the front side, 5 of the 7 street trees closest to the house are Norway maples. I think it's fair to say that the property and the neighborhood are disproportionately burdened with this invasive species and exist inside a tree monoculture. Thus, the Urban Forestry's recommendation to deny the request also goes against another of the Strategic Forest Management Plan's goals of achieving equitable distribution. In place of the Norway maple, I would like to plant a few native species, hemlocks and beeches, but as the canopy study makes clear, these species will be outcompeted and will not thrive. One of the claims that the Urban Forestry Report does make is that, and I'm going to quote, that the Norway maple tree at 34 Clissold Road provides numerous aesthetic, social, and economic benefits to the property owner and the local community. Wow. The presumptuousness and hubris of that statement should give this council pause. I definitely don't need a surrogate to determine whether I derive aesthetic, social, or economic benefits from a tree on my property. I will also point out that the 3 letters in support versus none in opposition to the proposal, to my proposal, also suggests that the Urban Forestry got wrong the community's views on the aesthetic, social, and economic benefits of the tree. So I urge this council to pass a motion to, number 1, entirely reject the Urban Forestry Report. Number 2, to give weight to the property owner and the community's views and wishes who don't want to live in a tree monoculture. And number 3, to approve my request without condition. Thank you.
We have a question for you. Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ivan, for being here today. I appreciate your presentation. Can you talk to me a little bit more about your concerns of living in a tree monoculture? Like, what are some of the negative impacts as you're experiencing them?
Well, for one, all we see are maple trees. And the negative effect is if I'm trying to plant other species, hemlocks, beeches, a ginkgo tree, whatever I want to plant, it's not going to thrive. This is a huge canopy. These trees have huge canopies, not a bad thing. I have 6 of them on my property, just in my backyard, a 30 by 30, so not much bigger than this room, actually, maybe smaller, actually. So 6 full-grown trees, and if I'm trying to plant anything else, I can't. The streetscape on the street itself, I mean, I just mentioned the 7 closest trees, are all Norway maples. Across the street I have an oak, on one side I have a catalpa, but the rest, Norway maples. They tend not to be very healthy trees. I know that when I've talked to Urban Forestry and they come out, they kind of generally tell me that these trees, are not typically very healthy, and so it's just a monoculture. You're just living in Norway maples. I'd like to diversify away from that.
Well, we love diversity here in the city, so I'm not mad at that. Why this tree and not any of the other 5?
This tree probably would have the biggest impact on if I wanted to plant in its place something else or next to it, or in the plot next to it, because of the canopy and the way it's located in the yard. It probably covers the most, and therefore, like I said, if I'm trying to plant anything, it really outcompetes it. I know I have it sucks up most of the water. Other plants other shrubs that I've tried to plant next to it, really don't thrive. And certainly, like I said, if I'm trying to plant anything else that's more native, these are not these are invasive. These are not native to Canada. So I'd like to plant some more native species, and they won't thrive if I try to do that.
Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you. Any other questions? I've got a quick one. Let me pass the chair.
Councillor Holiday, question?
The vice chair's got. Right. All right. Thank you. Did I understand correctly, just from the last few words? Are you looking to replant something in its place?
Yes, I'm looking to plant hemlocks, beeches, potentially a ginkgo tree as well. So I have a plan to plant. I'm not just looking to clear cut and leave it blank.
Right. And that's your backyard.
That's my backyard.
And how many other trees did you have in the backyard already?
I have 6 full-grown maple trees in the backyard. 5 of them are Norway maples. One's a silver maple.
Familiar with all of those.
Yeah.
Thank you for speaking to us. Okay, questions of staff? Deputy Mayor Morley, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. I see Max here today. Thanks for joining us, Max. Can you speak to us a little bit about the tree in question here and what potential impact it's having on the resident and the neighborhood as being an invasive species?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. The Norway maple trees is it's not a native tree to Toronto. However, the tree bylaw, Chapter 813, does not exempt the invasive species that in terms of the issue of the permit or granting the exception. So this tree is healthy. Even in arborist report from the arborist hired by the property owner, the tree is indicated as is in good condition. So tree is healthy and maintainable. It's no other impact to the existing trees. For sure, it is if you plant shrubs there or veggies or something underneath, they're going to impact because of the shading, and we know that. But there are so many Norway maple trees in the city of Toronto. That's why the tree policy and tree bylaw does not exempt them from the bylaw protection.
Are there other native species that are compatible, that might be more compatible with going in around this area? Or, the point from the resident around wanting to diversify some of the thing, is it possible to do that without removing the tree?
But I don't know exactly the spacing around, could be, and it's good to have multiple species, not just the one monoculture, for sure, in the future. It depends on the owner, right? Maybe it was a previous owner, they were self-seeded and they didn't spend money to plant the trees. But if the owner wants to develop a new landscape in there, for sure, I agree with them. They find that some other trees, which there are a lot of native trees that can go there. Depends on the spacing that they have. They can plant, small growing trees, medium-sized trees, large growing trees, depends on them to develop the property. The question is, the tree is not in that stage that is in poor condition, and urban forestry is supporting removal of that tree.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of staff? Vice Chair, if I may pass it to you, I wanted to ask some questions. Sure. Thank you. Max, just if you could, Mr. Dita, thank you for answering questions. If you could just clarify for council and those listening, staff's hands are fairly tied when there's an application to remove a healthy tree. very few reasons that you can grant the application to remove it. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it's fair to say. And then the problem is that if there is other reason, let's say, to remove that tree, let's say the applicant is going to committee of adjustment from minor variances, still urban forestry will not support removal. But if under the Planning Act, committee of adjustment support or grant the final and binding letter for those variances, that will be a case that let the tree go for sure and replace the tree. Or if they're building as of right and that tree is in conflict as of right, so it means they got a permit to develop the site as of right. Still, if there is a conflict, the urban forestry have authority in the bylaw to issue the permit to remove the tree.
In other words, the bylaw is set up in a way that staff don't have a lot of discretion or judgment ability to look at a site and think about the spacing and so on, or the story around the tree. It's healthy. The bylaw is really clear. You've got to refuse that in your report. Is that fair?
Yeah. There are a couple of cases in the bylaw that the tree still can remove the tree. For example, the tree is impacting the property, is very close to the property and foundation. Sometimes it's very close to the roof of the house and is creating problems. That's the other cases. So it's, or contaminated soil, for example, some cases we had before. But other than that, that's at the authority in the bylaw. Okay. That's why you come to community council to make a better decision if the case is.
Norway maples, they propagate with the little maple keys. Is it fair to say it's a fairly aggressively replicating tree?
Well, it is not a native tree, so pretty much all invasive trees, Norway maples, other Manitoba maples, they can do that.
Right.
Still, they're providing benefits. We do not want to forget that those trees, even though are invasive, they're providing benefits to the environment. That's happening in the city of Toronto. More, I don't know exactly now the percentage, but it's about 50% Norway maples and Manitoba maples or other invasive species in Toronto. So urban forestry, I believe the policy is not ready yet to remove all of these trees, which we maybe desire, right, and then go to the next and plant only native trees. Take in consideration the losing a lot of trees lately, right, because of the pests and disease, Asian longhorn beetle, emerald ash borer, and others.
You got my next question.
You got one more question, yes.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'll be quick. Are there tree species that are sought after because we've lost populations of trees in the city, that if people were having the choice to plant and they could pick anything, are there things that are desirable that they be planted?
Yes, there is a list of trees in the city of Toronto, about 30 to 35 species that the owners can choose from that list. But at the same time, the general rule is if they plant native trees, will be good to grow.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Back to you.
Are there any other questions of staff? Thanks, Mr. Dita. Members wishing to speak. Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a really tough one, and I really appreciate the homeowner being here today and all of the work and time that's gone into this. Since taking office almost a year ago, I've been pretty consistent in my support of our tree canopy and refusal of request to remove healthy trees, with a few exceptions. The exceptions being safety, or risk of safety if the tree is leaning towards a home or has some kind of health specific consideration. This is my first monoculture concern, my first sort of diversity of trees on the lot issue, and unfortunately I am leaning towards staff recommendations on this one, because we do have a couple of other instances of trees that, again, we've not supported the removal because they are healthy trees, an important part of our tree canopy. So that is where I'm leaning today, Mr. Chair, and I hate to disappoint, but I would like to see this tree protected. And something, again, I think I need to continue to turn my mind to and further understand, but ultimately in a climate crisis, mature, significant sized trees like this one do continue to provide benefit, and I think it's important for us to keep that in mind. If and when the tree is in decline, I'd be very happy to support a removal, but those are my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other members wishing to speak? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? Correct. Staff recs. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, EY 8.5, 115 Langden Avenue, request for fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. We have a speaker. Marco Vieira. Marco here? Marco Vieira, I hear you're online. It's Stephen Holiday, Chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. Can you hear me?
Morning. Yes, I can hear you. I was just muted for a little second there.
All right. Welcome, Marco. You've got 5 minutes. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. So good morning, council members. My name is Marco Vieira with Epic Designs, Inc. I'm acting as the agent for Mr. Domingos. He's also here with me. And I'd just like to take the opportunity to summarize or go over a couple of the sticking points with our proposal. So the intent here is to keep the existing fence along the east, south, and west limits of the property line. This fence has been in existence for approximately 20 years, and we are seeking the exemption for height and its close proximity to the water's edge, where on one side we're asking for 1.09 meters, on the other side is 0.076 meters setback to the existing water's edge. We do acknowledge that part of the application also deals with the construction of the pool enclosure, which the type of construction used may create some concerns with regards to visibility into the pool area. And we have met with staff on site as far back as last Friday to just discuss and look at possible solutions. So as an alternative, we came up with city staff on site was to replace the vertical boards of the existing pool enclosure fence and replace them with 1 inch by 1 inch vertical pickets that would increase the visibility into the pool area and therefore not create any adverse impact or issues with people being in the pool deck area without having proper visibility. The existing backyard is fully enclosed with a fence, also with self-latching devices located on the gates and with spring-loaded device so that the gates always remain closed. So we're asking to, for the approval or your consideration to maintain the existing condition. The pool was previously installed, I believe 4 years ago to replace an existing above-ground pool in the same location. So we asked Council for the consideration to approve this exemption.
Thank you, Mr. Vieira. Is that everything?
To you, Ms. Councilor, I believe so.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker?
No, I'm just wondering why the speaker didn't have his video on. Huh? They can choose not to have it on? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir. There's a question from the gallery, but they're not permitted.
I had a problem registering.
Okay, did you want to speak on this item?
Yes.
Okay, could you see one of the clerk's staff at the back there? We'll just make sure that we get you registered, and we'll welcome you up in just a moment.
And I'll be brief.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, sure. Who would like to ask some questions on this item? Councillor Holliday.
Mr. Vieira, it's Stephen
Questions?
Holliday. I had a couple of questions for you. Could you tell me when the pool was built?
The pool was built in June of 2020, replacing an old existing above-ground pool.
June of 22. Who built the pool?
I believe the homeowner had somebody install this in-ground pool.
Was it a pool contractor?
Yes, it was.
Are you able to share who that was with me?
Yes, the name of the company is Aqueduct.
And so that pool was built close to the property line edges. It was built so close that it doesn't meet the pool enclosure bylaw. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did Aqueduct also do the pool enclosure, or how did that work? Who was responsible for dealing with the enclosure?
So the existing pool enclosure was built by the homeowner approximately when he first bought the property 20 years ago. So the enclosure, which basically fences in the existing property line on the east, west, and south side, has been in existence for 20 years with also the previous pool when it was located at the rear of the property. So the in-ground pool came after.
Okay, and so can you tell us, is there a permit required to build a pool? Like a construction permit, in your experience?
I believe you don't require a construction permit for a pool, but you do require a pool enclosure permit. And that was, something that was conveyed to the homeowner that it wasn't going to be needed because he's got an existing fence that was there. But they were not aware of the bylaw requirements to ensure that this new pool going in would have to be 1.2 meters away from the enclosure as opposed to taking the measurements from the property line.
Do you know, was Aqueduct aware, or was it the homeowner that wasn't aware?
The homeowner wasn't aware. I am not sure if Aqueduct wasn't. I'm assuming they would be if that's what they do.
Do you know which days the construction were in June?
Not the exact dates. I know that it was started in June. We've got proof of when the liner was being applied in August, but it originally started sometime in June.
Do you know if it was during stage 1 or stage 2 of the province's emergency plans?
I'm not sure. I'm not aware of that.
Fair enough. I didn't have any other questions. Thank you.
Yeah, you were down almost to your last question since the clock didn't start, just the same. Sure.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Pass it back to you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Are there any other questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us, Mr. Vieira. We have an
Thank you.
additional speaker registered. Just bear with me here as I get these systems set up. Mr. David King.
Good morning. My name is David King, K-I-N-G. I tried to register, but I had IT difficulties. I have now registered.
Got you. Great. Welcome to the EYCC. Please, you have 5 minutes. Please begin when you're ready.
I'm the abutting homeowner for the rear of the property. And the first thing I'd like to do is dispute something that the previous owner said. The fence that separates the rear of my property from the rear of the property in question was not the fence that was there when the current pool was built. There's a chain link fence there. The remnants of that fence still exist if somebody wants to come and inspect it. I've been arguing this through various people since about July the 8th, 2020, when I discovered what was going on. I have the report for action, and I'd like to start out by saying on page 2, the recommendations is the way I feel on this matter. That they refuse the application, and I'd like to highlight the pieces of the report that makes me feel that way. There's 4 items that are non-compliant. They're mainly relating to the height of the fence and the distance of the fence from the surface of the water, which is quite clear in the bylaw 447. The variances are not insignificant. In one case, it's almost 50% too close. For example, it should be 1.2 meters, and one of the edges is 0.76. Yes, I realize that's more than 50%, but it's not insignificant. These are all for safety reasons, so that if somebody falls off the fence, they don't land in the water. It says the property currently has a charge before the courts from September 16th, 2020. So this is more than 3 years ago. This has been, the city's been aware of what's been going on here. I understand it takes a while for these things to come to light, but so be it. So it's not me saying I've been dealing with this for a long time. The city's known about this since at least September 16th, 2020. And I have records saying it was about July the 8th or 9th when the city became aware of what was going on when I first contacted them via email. Going to page 5 of the report, the applicant is requesting the exemption for their privacy and security. Well, how about everybody else who has a complying pool fence? And the alternate is not feasible because the rear abutting fence is within a few centimeters of the property line already. The side fences are right on the property line, so there's no way that a fence can be moved away. My suggestion, being rather flippant, would be move the pool, which you can't do because it's poured concrete, but you could pour new concrete inside the existing pool to make the water surface compliant with the bylaw, which would be what my suggestion is. Leave what's there, add more concrete to make they call it a pool deck that puts the water surface 1.2 meters from the fence. I completely disagree with the fence being allowed to be over height. When I built my fence, I had no trouble finding that the kind of fence in a neighborhood backyard can't be higher than 2 meters. And I don't understand why this applicant thinks he can suddenly go 2 meters plus another 2/3 of a meter. Thank you.
Thank you. If you just hang on a moment, are there any questions of the speaker?
Yeah, I just,
Councilor
what was your address again?
132 Cordella Avenue.
Oh, you live on Cordella, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I
Okay.
just didn't get it when you,
And
when you came to speak.
I didn't say, it abuts 115 at the rear.
Yes, exactly, yeah, I know.
Thank you.
It's just I didn't hear you when you came forward on your.
I didn't give my address, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask if you're done? Are you done?
Yeah,
May I
yeah,
ask a question?
yeah, go ahead.
Do you want me to stay here or should I?
Yeah, if you can. It's fairly straightforward. I'm looking at aerial pictures on my screen as you're talking, and there's this massive tree that was there in 2018.
Yes.
I can't tell where it is, and then now
It
it's
was-
gone on the 2020 and 2021. Sorry, it's gone on the 2021 imagery, not on the 2021.
Well, that's what started my investigation as to what was going on here. On approximately July the 8th, the tree fell down and went through my garage roof. An investigation by the arborist that came to remove the tree was that somebody had cut off the main roots right at the property line. At that point, I called Toronto Forestry to come and look at it around July 10th to the 20th, somewhere in that. An inspector came and looked at it, wouldn't give me an opinion as to what had gone on, but in my biased opinion, it was quite clear somebody had cut the roots, right at the property line down to a depth of about 5 feet, and the tree fell down. The tree was 40 to 50 feet, so non-metric in height, with a very large canopy.
Was the tree part of the work around the fence? Or was it set? I can't tell. Was it?
It was right on the fence line, and part of the fence is still visible in the remaining stump.
So but the tree didn't have to do with the changeover of the fence, or is that the original fence that's there?
That fence was there when I moved in 40 years ago.
And it's still there, or did it get changed?
The chain link fence I've left pending resolution,
Okay.
but the abutting property owner has built a new wooden fence just inboard on his side of the property line.
And again, because I have aerial imagery,
Yep.
I think you said someone said there was an above ground pool there.
Yes, which was hard to see because of the tree, and like if this was July the 10th, 2020, and you looked at the aerial view on Google Maps, it's hard to see the pool unless you know you're looking for it because of the size of the tree.
So it was an above ground pool, and it got
Yes.
switched to a below ground.
Yes, and that's also an issue, but it's not germane to this discussion.
Okay, it's hard for me, like, because you have the local knowledge, it's hard for me to understand. So thank you.
Lived there 40 years.
Yeah, thank you for answering.
So do you have all the pictures that are in the report?
We do. Yeah.
No, is that what you're looking at?
Well, I'm looking at an aerial picture, so that's why
okay.
I just wanted to ask those questions. Okay, are there, I'm done questions. I'll just check. Are there any other questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Are there any other speakers on this item? Seeing none, I will ask if there's questions of staff.
Yes, if I can bring staff forward. Thank you. And thank you for the deputant for being here. Okay, so if you can just give us a history on this application as well. And there's an outstanding charge, it's my understanding, that's going through the courts very shortly.
Yeah, so good morning, Chair and Council. My name is Chantal Cormier. I'm a supervisor for the West District Investigation Services Team from Municipal Licensing and Standards. So we received this complaint. It was actually a referral, I believe, either from Urban Forestry or Toronto Buildings in 2020. I'll start off by saying there is an active charge before the courts, so I can't speak too much on that. But the notice of violation was issued in September of 2020 for pool enclosure no permit. There was never a permit that was obtained by the property owner. The owner confirmed with the officer who went out there that the pool was built in 2012, did not mention that the pool was an above ground pool. It was kind of insinuated that the pool that was existing had been there since 2012. And then in October 2021, there was a zoning folder open for a zoning certificate regarding the pool. However, there was no response received from the applicant, so the file was closed by, I believe, the zoning department or Toronto Buildings in November of 2021. And in March of 2022, so 2 years after we received the file, there was still no permit application in. Therefore, the officer laid the charge. And then in November of 2022, the zoning folder was opened in relation to a pool permit application.
Okay, as far as the tree that Councillor Holiday, do you have any information on the tree?
Through you, Chair, Councillor, I do not. That would have been through an urban forestry.
And I believe he's left, yeah.
Folder.
Okay. I think Max is left. Yeah, he left. Yeah. Is there any way we can get him back? Because he's, so just a question to you. So there is a violation. So if we refuse this application today, what happens to the violation?
Through you, Chair, the violation will still stand. So if the application is refused, the violation would still be there with no exemption. So we would go forth with either telling the property owner that the pool enclosure needs to be rectified and brought up to the requirements of the bylaw. I mean, inevitably, if somebody just refuses to do the work that's needed to be done to bring the property into compliance, that's when it would end up before the courts. It's kind of up to the property owner to make the adjustments to bring them into compliance. I will say just to note, on the original exemption application, there was only note of the height and the setback. When I was reviewing the application and the officer's notes, I noticed that the visibility and the climbability, which wasn't mentioned by the applicant or Mr. King, that I saw the barbecue as a climbability aspect as well. So the the exemption is for more than just what's noted on the by the applicant.
Okay, so looking at your report, and as the deputant mentioned, there was a violation that was issued in 2020, right? So we're in 2023 now. So this actually can go on for quite a while for the applicant to respond to the city on meeting the requirements. Am I correct?
Through you, Chair, yes. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we were redistributed in 2020, so we were not doing a lot of property standards responses, so that might have had something to do with it. But initially, yeah, the complaint came in 2020, but the exemption is for the actual enclosure. The notice of violation that was issued was for the fact that there was no permit at all. So right now, there's no notice of violation for those deficiencies. We're kind of waiting the outcome of this council meeting to determine if the exemption goes through, then no need for a notice of violation. If it doesn't go through, then we would act on that and issue a notice of violation for those deficiencies to get rectified.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Seeing none. Do you want to hold it down? No, I think. Okay. To speak, Councillor Nunziata.
Thank you. So what I'm going to be moving is the staff recommendation to refuse the application.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendation.
Yeah, so, I mean, listen to the deputant and, you know, to realize that actually the order was in 2020 and we're 2023 now, and that has not been resolved. Now, I never even received a call from the property owner. I did receive a call from the agent just a few days before community council. And I've not received a call from the owner at all. So it really disturbs me when we have residents or applicants that do build things and build pools and that without a permit, and then come to us later on asking, okay, can you exempt me and can you allow us? And, you know, I don't agree with that at all. It's very disturbing to me when that happens. So that's why I'm moving to refuse the application. And I want to thank the deputant for being here. So hopefully now that we move this, the city staff could move forward on whatever issues are outstanding at this address. Thank you.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, we are now on EY 8.6. EY 8.6 is 272 Gary Drive, request for a fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. There is a speaker registered, Scott Mousseau. Is Scott available in the chamber or online? Scott, welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You have 5 minutes to speak. Please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Musso, along with my wife Rita. We live at 272 Gary Drive. We are here today to ask for an exemption to the city bylaw and to request a permit for an 8-foot solid wood fence. The fence will be 8 feet high and will run approximately 60 feet along the east side of our property and will be completely private. It will be on our side of the property line. The contractor will do the entire job on our side of the property and will at no time have any access to the property at 270 Gary Drive. We have had many acts of vandalism and property damage throughout the years and have also spent a lot of money replacing plants and flowers that were either damaged, destroyed, or removed. We also have installed security cameras, which were also destroyed when a weapon was fired from a window at 270 Gary over the existing 6-foot chain link fence. We feel that the solid wood 8-foot fence would not only provide us with safety and security, but also give us a peace of mind. The east side pathway is the only access to the backyard, otherwise, except for through the garage. We are concerned when walking along the pathway between the two houses as we don't feel safe. Please consider the situation and hopefully you will provide us with the exemption for the permit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Scott. Are there any questions of the speaker?
Yes, I do.
Councillor Nunziata?
So this has been going on for quite a few years,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
An ongoing issue. We've contacted city staff many, many times on this one, and it looks like the neighbor continues to harass and do nothing on
That's
his
correct.
property. 2014, right? This has been an ongoing issue. Yeah, I'm glad that it's actually here on Community Council. And hopefully this will resolve some of the issues that you're having with your neighbor, because I've been out there personally and been harassed as well from your neighbor, as you know, right, over the years. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Any other speakers to this matter? Seeing none. Questions of staff? Seeing none. Councillor Nunziata to speak.
Yes, so I'll move to grant the application. Do we put there it is on the screen, to grant the exemption. As I mentioned, yeah, this has been an ongoing issue where this neighbor started doing work on the house in 2014 and has been harassing the neighbors for the past 10 years, and even city staff, when city staff has gone out there on a complaint. And you know, it just actually surprises me, and Councillor Holiday and I were talking about it this morning, how somebody can have a building permit and have it outstanding for almost 10 years, and as long as he puts a nail, hammers a nail in, it's still active. And there's absolutely nothing that we could do, which is frustrating for me and for the neighbors around, because they have to go through that for many years. And I think we need to change that. I know it's provincial, but you know, I have a lot of those in my ward, and so and I know the neighbors have been going through a lot of frustration over the years. So I will grant the exception. And thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nunziata moves to grant the exemption. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I'm just checking because I lost my screen here. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Perruzza issued a letter to Community Council to add new business. I'll just place a motion here to add new business. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item is carried. That item is now on the agenda. I guess I should describe the item. It's parking, changes to parking rules. Okay, EY 8.8, 8 Golf Crest Road, request for a fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. Also, a quick thank you to everyone who's been waiting patiently. I know there's still a lot of speakers. We're down to 3 items. The first speaker is David Hernick. David is indicated as being online. Hi, David. It's Stephen Holliday, the chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, Stephen.
All right. Welcome to the Community Council. You have 5 minutes to speak. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. We appreciate the opportunity to comment on this item. We believe that we've covered the reasons we object to the fence height exemption in the comments we submitted on October the 13th. We wanted to appear today in order to permit you with the chance to ask us questions on those comments.
Was that everything, David?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for joining us today. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, maybe I'll just ask a very quick question. Could you just clarify in relation to where you live in relation to this particular application? And I think you said you didn't support it.
Correct. We are at number 6 Golf Crest. The property owner is at number 8 Golf Crest, and the fence in question is on the property line between number 8 and number 10.
Great, thank you. Any other questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us today, David. The next speaker I have registered for this is Bodan Pahuta, if I pronounced that correctly. Yes. Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council, Bodan. Please join us at the front. You have 5 minutes to speak, and you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and councillors. You've already received our submission about it last week about our objection to the Golf Crest or number 8 Golf Crest exemption application. And I came here today to give you a brief summary of our position and be able to answer any questions people may have. Generally, as taxpayers, we hope and expect city, municipal, licensing, and council follow the bylaws, and if necessary, have the power to make reasonable decisions if a bylaw does not fit a problem. We try to conduct ourselves in accordance with bylaws, and we expect our neighbors to do that also. Just as we don't want a fence that we calculated to be 10 inches too high, which is congruent with what Metro, municipal and licensing calculated. Number 8 doesn't want a fence that would be 10 inches too low either. So to allow everybody to enjoy their properties, if neighbors don't get along, and in this case we don't, following impartial, even-handed rules and regulations allows everybody to live peacefully within the community and enjoy their own property. I hope that the submission we made last week is clear to you. And as I say, if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to address them now. But in short, we want number 8 to follow the bylaws, fix their fence, and make the fence secure and private. Right now, it's 10 inches too high. An easy fix is to remove the top 3 boards of the fence that was constructed and this will and cut back the fence posts, which even are higher than that. And by removing that, the variance will be corrected. One additional ask that I had, but from what I understand, it's not the prerogative of the council to deal with it. So I'll put it, given the season, I'll put it on our Christmas wish list, is for number 8 to correct a large gap at the bottom of the fence, which allows pests and skunks to pass through. If we need to, we'll fix that. But living in a neighborhood, one would hope that the people that put up the fence would do that. So that is what I wanted to cover with everybody. And if there are any questions, I'd like to answer them now.
Thank you. May I pass the chair, Mr. Vice Chair?
Councillor Holiday,
will take the
question.
chair. Thank you. If I may, just a couple of questions. What's your relationship to the fence?
Okay, we're on the direct boundary. We're at number 10. The fence is put up between number 10 and number 8, by number 8.
By number 8, okay. And just for the benefit of my colleagues on Community Council, can you describe what the fence looks like its construction style? Is it wood? Is it vertical, horizontal, that sort of thing?
It's a vertical board fence with 3 horizontal boards on top that raise it even higher. Okay. It's actually a very nice fence. Before we had a secure and private fence too. We had a chain link fence with hedges and shrubs on both sides. Number 8 removed their shrubs and hedges, and then we're complaining that they had no privacy, which existed before all that. But regardless, people can put up whatever fences they want. We just want people to follow the bylaws.
Okay, so you mentioned you were concerned with the gap at the bottom, but I think my colleagues know we don't regulate that.
Yeah.
Are you otherwise, sorry, you said the 3 boards at the top you object to because that adds height to the fence. Are you otherwise okay with the vertical board part of the fence?
Yes, I am. It may be a bit over here and there, but it may be over, under, but generally it's those top 3 boards that are the issue.
Great. Thank you very much for clarifying. I'll take the chair back, but I appreciate you speaking to us today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, by all means.
I just, so the fence is 10 inches higher than what the bylaw permits. And do you know why the fence was built higher? Is it a private, are the grades constant there? Are they flat?
The grade is gently sloping from west to east on that part of Golf Crest.
Okay. So if the bylaw permitted a fence 10 inches higher, you would be okay with the fence as is?
Well, my intent is to comply with bylaws.
You basically said, so if the rules are, I think it's, what's the height, the maximum height? 6'6" or 6'9"?
2 meters, 6'6".
2 meters, yeah. So it'd be 6'6". So if we added 10 inches to the bylaw, you would be okay with the fence?
But my intent and goal is to live in Etobicoke and follow the rules. Yes.
No, I realize that. One of the reasons why people are able to come before this council is because, as you know, bylaws don't capture each and every situation, right? All our individual needs and our individual desires sometimes are not, there's no constant built into that. So we write a bylaw. You try to give that bylaw, you try to write it in a way that says, okay, you know what, 6'6", in most cases, especially if grades are level, right? There is no gradient differences between the properties.
May I interrupt?
6'6", let me just finish with my question, okay? 6.6 in that instance would provide both properties abutting that fence, yours in this case, and number 8, would provide privacy for both of you. If we had decided to basically, add some, so one of the reasons where people are able to come here is ask us to vary those rules. So in this instance, they want an exemption to that rule. They want to say, look, we understand that your bylaw says 6 feet 6, but we don't agree with that. We would like it 6'10" here at our particular property, right? Like committee of adjustment, for example, variances. You have bylaws, and then you have a process to vary those rules. So you're objecting to the variance here as well.
I am objecting to the variance. To your point,
because the fence is then too high, or does not meet the bylaw standard.
Well, maybe, I'm sorry, I may not understand your question, because if the given is the bylaw, and if I want to accept the bylaw as a resident of Etobicoke, that means 6'6". So I don't think personal preference really has anything to do with that bylaw. I understand there could be an exemption, but they do have a secure private fence, and it still would be at 6'6". Sorry, I may not be understanding your question or concern properly.
The argument you made was that the bylaw, and I just wanted to get some clarity in my own brain, that the argument you made was that the bylaw says 6 feet 6.
Right.
This exceeds that bylaw. One of the things that people are able to come before this council and ask is to create exemptions or variances to the bylaws. Okay? Because bylaws don't necessarily fit each and every case. So my question to you was, if the bylaw added those 10 inches, then you wouldn't be here today. You'd be okay with the fence 10 inches higher.
Once again, I accept what the rules are. My neighbor did not.
Okay.
And my neighbor did not provide a reason for why you should go out of those rules.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Next speaker I have registered is Brendan McCall. Is Brendan in the chamber or online? Okay, Brendan is online. Brendan, it's Stephen Holliday, the chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi, Brendan. Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You may begin speaking. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you for this opportunity. And I am at home today. If I can appear via video at some point, I could actually show you the fence. There's some important information I think that maybe we're not aware of. Number one, our fence is the lowest of 3 fences. So the neighbor to the north, the fence is higher. Mr. Pahuta himself has a lattice that's higher. And also Dave and Nancy, a section of their fence, they've made higher as well. So actually we are the lowest of 3 fences. Number 2, a very important point. Our lumber is compliant, meaning when you add the boards, you have a 6-foot board, which you can see in the photos. You then have a 1-inch board laying down, a 4-inch board, and a 1-inch board on top. The wood itself, the fence itself, is 6 foot 6 inches tall, or 2 meters. We hired a reputable fence building company entirely at our own expense. We got them out of the yellow pages. We told them the fence will be scrutinized. My neighbor, Mr. Pahuta, and my other neighbor, no, Someone has called the fire department over 20 times in the last 2 years. The police have been on site what feels like half a dozen times. The bylaw officers I know on a first name basis. So we are talking about topography, the grade between the two homes. One of the most important things that's been left out is Mr. Pahuta has a raised patio on his house. He hasn't mentioned that. So if that height was ever factored in to the measurements, I understand it's 3 points on either side. If one of those points was to hit Mr. Pahuta's raised patio, then we wouldn't even be having this conversation. I'd also like to mention I've added soil and rocks on my side to try and bring up the topography since this notice was issued. So I've done my best. I also tried to fill the bottom gap. Our home is a new build, 2014 build. Sometimes the topography settles, the earth settles, and we're not in control of that. But again, at my expense, I've gone out, purchased materials to try and bring it up because again, the wood is compliant. What you see in the photos is a 6'6" fence, but the space underneath, the topography and the measurements is what we're talking about. So I'd love to live in peace with my neighbors. I like this fence. Golf Crest, we've experienced, I've had an attempted home invasion this year. I've had my car stolen at Foodland this year. Our friends on Golf Crest have had their house broken into. We've had 2 other vehicles. So we've had 6 pretty serious crimes on Golf Crest in the last 12 months. And I just like everyone to keep their fences. Mr. Pahuta can have his fence, which is taller than mine. Dave and Nancy can have their fence that's taller than mine. The neighbors to the north that I've never met, they can have their fence that's taller than mine. And if at any point you'd like me to appear via video link and show you these fences, or maybe pull out a measuring tape, or you can come to my house and visit. If you are not going to approve this exemption, at least come by and take a look yourself. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Mr. McCall. I've got some questions for you, if I may pass the chair.
Yes.
Absolutely. And don't forget to start the clock. There you go. Okay.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Mr. McCall, could you just tell me, you had the fence built by someone? Who was that?
Literally, it's like 1-800-FENCES or something like that. My wife, who's not with me at the time, it was COVID pricing. We looked for a bunch of people. It actually cost $11,000. We were shocked at the pricing, but again, we did it 2 inches on our property line, and we told them be compliant. And we knew that the police were going to be called. The police came on site multiple times. We knew it was going to be scrutinized. So we asked this company, just whatever you do, make sure it's compliant. And that's what they built.
Okay.
Hi there.
By the way, I also said it's not 10 inches taller. It's not true.
If I can just have one speaker, and that's Mr. McCall for now, if I may. Okay. And so the fence was built. Was there any process used to agree on the fence or the fence height with your next door neighbor, Mr. Pahuta?
No, we don't communicate in a sort of polite manner. And so we simply asked for it to be the maximum height. I am a tall person, and again, with the raised patio directly opposite our dining area, we just wanted it as tall as possible for maximum privacy.
How many inches?
But again, bylaw compliant.
How many inches long are the boards? The vertical boards?
So it's 6 foot board, and then you have a board laid flat to create 1 inch, a 4-inch board, and a 1-inch board on top, making it 6'6" total, or 2 meters.
Okay. Thank you. That was all my questions. I'll check. Is there anyone else with questions? Seeing none. Thank you for speaking to us.
Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I have one other speaker registered, and that is Cynthia Casa, and forgive me, Casabian or Casabrian? I can't read this.
Kasabian.
Kasabian. Thank you very much. Cynthia, welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You have 5 minutes to speak. You may begin.
The fence company was recommended from Home Stars, which is a site that many homeowners contact for well recommended fence building, and it's called Toronto's Best Fence. Our fence builder Oleg completely build the fence manually by hand without machines to lessen the damage to the both property side, even though the fence is within 2 inches of our property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Did anyone have any other questions of the speaker? Seeing none, I'm sorry, our procedure doesn't allow us to ask questions of the speaker from the gallery. It's only members of council. Seeing none, I will ask, are there any other speakers on this particular item? There's not. Okay, so we'll take it into committee. We'll ask staff questions. Are there members of council wishing to ask questions of staff? Seeing none, I will ask.
Well, just one little question. So the 10-inch violation, how long does that run for along the fence?
Good morning, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm not too sure where the 10 inches is coming into play. Based on the officer's photos, there is a grade difference. So if we're measuring from 8 Golf Crest, the measurements are pretty on par to that 2 meter mark, with the exception of a few areas where the grade goes up and down. It might be 1 inch to maximum 3 above that 2 meter. And then if we're measuring from 10 Golf Crest, the maximum measurements that I saw was about 4 inches over that 2 meter mark. So I'm not too sure where the 10 inches is coming into play, but there is grading that does go up and down throughout the fence. So it is multiple areas throughout the fence that might be 2 meters, then 2.2 meters, then back to 2 meters, 2.3, back to 2, because it's on uneven ground.
So why is this here for an exemption?
Because in certain areas it is above that 2 meter mark, so therefore it is
2-inch violation.
Yeah, 1 inch, 2 inches. I think maximum 3 inches coming from 8 Golf Crest, and then 10 Golf Crest, I believe, is a maximum of 4 inches.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, our procedure won't allow anyone to add additional information. Are there any further questions? No. Okay. Councillor Morley.
Thanks for being here today and for the information. In your opinion, is this fence reasonably compliant with the bylaw as laid out?
Through you, Chair, we don't see any safety concerns. It's in violation of the bylaw, but yeah, with regards to safety or any concerns that staff has, we don't see.
And just to follow up on that, we heard from one of the deputants here today that there are numerous surrounding fences in the neighborhood that do exceed the height that we're discussing here today. Was that your observation, or can you confirm if that was the observation from staff?
Through you, Chair, I can confirm that on the side of 10 Golf Crest, there is a white, I want to say maybe a privacy screen would better describe it, because it's not a fence, it's not on the property line. I believe it's on top of the deck. That is higher than the fence that is built between 8 and 10 Golf Crest.
We do see that photoed in the report as well. That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I've got a few. May I pass the chair, Mr. Vice Chair?
Yep, happy to manage that.
Thank you. What is the height variance in the report to Community Council? Maximum height variance?
Through you, Chair, do you mean the height difference between the two properties?
Right. It says 2 to 2.3 meters. That's what's before Community Council today. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the height of the wood, the vertical wood, plus the wood on the top? Do we know? I think I heard it was a board, and a board. Do we know what that is?
Through you, Chair, I don't know the exact heights of each board. That wasn't mentioned in the officer's notes.
Okay.
All that we measured the fence as an entirety, so from ground level to the top, which would include those vertical boards at the top.
It would be, they did say 6 inches. It would be 6.5 inches though.
So I've got a photo of a tape measure in the report showing the board from 73 to 81 inches on the tape measure. So what does that leave us?
Sorry, can you go? I'm just going to Google
The
it.
tape measure starts at 73 inches and it ends at 81.25, I guess. So how many inches would that be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5.
Above the 2 meter mark? Or
Yeah,
the
sorry, I'll flip it around. It's your report.
Yeah.
So there's the tape measure. It starts at 73 and it ends at 81.5. The bottom of this board is 73 and that's 81.5. So would I be correct in understanding that that's 8 inches or so?
From the bottom?
From the bottom, this rail to the top.
Yeah. Is the white part at the top?
Oh, no, don't look at the white part.
Okay, just
Just
that.
this piece, so it is. This is one of the pages on the report.
Yeah.
So that's 8.5 inches. Does that sound right? So it's a board, and a board.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we've got that, and the applicant said that the fence boards are 6 feet.
Yes.
So we're at 6 feet, 8.5. That's over 2 meters, plus whatever distance from the ground.
So the fence would be measured, yes, from the ground, but the top of that tape measure, it would be from the ground. So the officer measured from the ground to the top of the tape measure, if that makes sense.
Yes, but my point in this is that the wood, so if it's a 6-foot fence board, plus a board, and a board, adds up to more than 2 meters.
Yes.
It has to, numerically.
Yes,
So
correct.
even as built, never mind the grading, the fence is over height, just by the plain configuration of the wood. Does that sound correct?
Through your chair, it sounds correct. I'd have to double check if.
Do we know, was the grade, when the fence was built, was the grading changed since the fence was built?
Through your chair, I don't believe so, no.
Okay. And in terms of the height, if the 3 boards were removed from the top, would this fence be generally compliant with the bylaw?
Through your chair, it should be. It might be just under in certain areas.
Okay.
In
You're
certain
talking
areas
within
where
a
it
few
is,
inches?
yeah, in
Okay.
certain areas where it is that a bit more over, not just the 1 inch, but maybe the 4 inches, then it would be in compliance. The areas where it's about an inch over, they would fall under the 2 meter mark.
Okay. And then so one of the things we heard from the speaker today was that they added soil to their side of the fence. If soil brings the grades closer in terms of differential, and I think we're talking a few inches here, not feet. If soil brings the grades closer, that allows for a shorter fence. Is that right?
Through you, Chair. So what happens when the grading changes is we take both sides into accountability, both 8 and 10. What we would do is measure a meter out, measure that grade, and then split the difference.
And split the difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the grades are very different, then that means that your fence has to be a little shorter.
Correct.
And if the grades are very similar, it means your fence can be allowed to be closer to the 2 meter mark. In other words, it's discounted when there's a grade differential.
Correct.
Okay. Are the grades relatively close now?
Through you, Chair, I can't confirm that because it wasn't. I believe the grade is about 4 inches off from
one side to the other.
10. Yeah, 10 Golf Crest would be on the lower grade then.
Okay, and so the report tells us that the variance is anywhere from 2 to 2.3 meters. That's the overall height of the fence, taking into account the grade, the space at the bottom, the configuration of the boards, and the overall height.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I've gone over. I appreciate your time. Are there any other members of council wishing to ask questions? All right. Any members wishing to speak? All right, I will speak. I am going to move the staff recommendations, which is to refuse the variance. What I can say is the following. It's good to meet some of the people to speak today. This is the first I heard of some of the information that was brought forward today, but as a member of council, we've all been there where we are challenged to try to sort through something that is rather complicated. From the best research we could do leading into this, we noticed online through the public reporting there is an enormous number of bylaw complaints and things within the general area. So I think there's a lot going on here. What I have very clearly in front of me is a difference between one neighbor and the other neighbor. And so we're stuck as a community council to try to pick one side or the other. Sometimes there's a bit of information or there's a bit of rationale about what has gone on. It's not completely clear in this case. So what do we have left? If you go through all of the steps trying to figure it out, all you've got is the bylaw at the end of the day. I built a fence just personally myself, I don't know, a month or two ago. And I understand the difficulty of making the calculations with the grade, the height, and so on with the fence. But what I just don't understand is how a professional fence company could be built, told to work within the bylaw, and by my math, unless I've got it wrong, even the configuration of the wood is slightly over. So if just the wood is slightly over, and you know it can't go right to the soil on the ground, then your fence is going to be over at the end of the day. And one of the things I'd heard is there's a large gap between the bottom of the fence and the earth, and that adds to the height. And you can't discount that amount. So there's still a way to have a very nice fence here. I think the easiest solution is, in applying the bylaws, just to take those 3 extra boards off the top, which is something you don't always see. It doesn't look bad, but it's an extra height to the fence. My overall advice, though, to all of the people involved in this is you've all got to live together. And I regret that community council has to be pulled into the middle of something that is going on. It sounds to be quite extensive. And I don't know what else will go on over time. But we're put into a very awkward spot to try to sort through this. And really all I've got left at the end of the day is the bylaw or not. And so my recommendation to community council is that we refuse the application for variance. I regret doing that. It's not easy and it's going to require a change to be made. But that's all that we've got left. And I will wish the best of luck for all of the neighbors who beyond today's meeting are going to have to figure out how to live next to one another. With that, I will ask finally if there's any other speakers. Seeing none. Did you want to speak? No, I got to know. Okay. On the motion on staff recommendations, all those in favor? Any opposed? That item is carried. Thank you. Okay, we have two items left. I've been notified that a speaker has come for EY 8.7, which was another fence exemption. What I'm going to propose to do, if community council's satisfied, is to reopen that item at the end to allow the speaker to participate. We already had made a decision on it, but I think if somebody wants to speak, we can find a way, if you support that, to reopen it. Other than that, we've got 2 items. We've got EY 826, which is 3100 Weston Road, which we have a number of speakers for, and we have an additional item from Councillor Perruzza on some traffic matters. So at this time, I think we should go to EY 8.26, 3100 Weston Road, amendment listing statement. We have several speakers, and the first speaker is Edith George. Welcome, Edith, to the Community Council. You have 5 minutes. Please begin. Sure, we can pass that around. Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Chair and members, I have lived in this area of the city since 1960. I brought forward an application for designation of 3100 Weston Road, the house and the Marian Shrine, to Heritage Preservation Services dated August 28, 2020. This property is located in an area of the city which is otherwise neglected and has few of its heritage resources designated. Rivermead happens to be one of these. I will be speaking on the Rivermead House as there are a list of speakers after me. Their expertise is the Marian Shrine. In the early 19th, he was also designing the homes of E.P. Taylor, located on Bayview Avenue near Post Road, and the country home of W. Garfield Weston, located in Kleinburg, Ontario. The Gardners of Toronto built and owned Rivermead from 1933 to 1950. I will only highlight some of their family's contributions. Sports. Percy Gardner was a member of the original board of directors of Maple Leaf Gardens for 17 years. Gertrude Gardner, his wife, opened up Rivermead to many charitable groups such as the Red Cross. This couple were philanthropic volunteers. Unfortunately, they both passed away before the establishment of the Orders of Canada and Ontario. Percy and Gertrude Gardner, immediate family members. George R. Gardner, their son. He was a major force in business, education, and the arts. He, along with his wife, created the Gardner Museum of Ceramic Arts. He was awarded an officer status of the Order of Canada and became a recipient of the Order of Ontario in 1990. Their daughter-in-law, Helen E. Gardner, she co-founded the Gardner Museum of Ceramic Arts. She became a recipient of the Order of Canada, 2007. The Gardner's daughter, Helen D. Phelan, she devoted a lifetime of voluntary service. She gave her energies and financial resources to a variety of causes in support of the arts, health services, and education. Helen was a recipient of the Order of Canada in 1983. Their son-in-law, Paul Phelan, an active participant in the sport of sailing, both as an athlete and volunteer, he was responsible for financially salvaging Canada's challenge for the 1986 America's Cup. Paul was a recipient of the Order of Canada, 1990. The Gardner family established at least 2 registered charitable foundations, the Percy R. Gardner and the Helen and Paul Phelan Foundations. Prime Minister Arthur Meehan, who was a friend of Percy Gardner's, at a testimonial dinner given for Mr. Gardner, stated, and I quote, I could not forgive myself if I missed this opportunity to laud him as one of Canada's finest citizens, end quote. This family has contributed a great deal to Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and the world. Canadian history is not boring. It's very much alive and well in my neighborhood. It is only fitting that there be a designation under the Ontario Heritage Act of 3100 Weston Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Deputy Mayor Morley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Thank you for joining us today, Edith. It's good to see you and learn more about this really important site. Can you talk to us about your personal connection to this site or to the founding folks on the site?
Percy Gardner was the youngest child of a farming family of 6 children. 2 of his older brothers became doctors, and their last practices could be found in Toronto. Dr. John Gardner's practice was in Mount Dennis at Eglinton and Weston Road. And his other brother, Dr. George Gardner, his last practice was found in the Junction at 123 Annette Street. My family was from the Junction. They lived at 112 Mulock Street. When my dad was a teenager, he became deathly ill, and Dr. Gardner was summoned to the house, and he immediately discovered that my father's appendix had burst in his body. He got him into his vehicle, he got him to the hospital, emergency surgery was performed, and my dad survived. A few years later, my Aunt Florence became deathly ill. Dr. Gardner came to the house, and he told her parents she wasn't going to make it. She had rheumatic fever, but he said, there's a new drug on the market, and I want to try it on her. And of course, they said yes. He administered the drug, and my aunt survived. That new drug was penicillin. These are the gardener's family's contributions to my family.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. Our next speaker is Antonio Cicchiarelli. Is Antonio here? Great. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You have 5 minutes to speak. Please begin when you're ready.
Mr. Chair, member of the council, ladies and gentlemen, we heard the beautiful history of the site, which is be taken in consideration, I believe. But I want to give you a different aspect. So, as indicated, my name is Antonio Cicchiarelli, and I would like to speak to you regarding the preservation of the Marian Shrine of Gratitude located on Weston and Shepherd. I am a Knights of Columbus, but today I want to speak as a resident of the area. I'm speaking as a resident of the area, frequently visiting the shrine. Every time that I visited the shrine, I was always someone praying there, the place of oasis of tranquility and devotion to Mother Mary, the Mother of God. The shrine was a reference to find inner peace and food for the soul. In today's society, where everyone is very busy and stressed, given the economical state that we're in all, due to the increase in food prices, home riches and post price, and average person to purchase, it's very difficult. Found that this unemployment is a challenge perspective. So you may ask yourself, where am I going with this? I believe that we are a society that cares for one another and recognize the great benefit that the shrine provides of 1,000 people from many walks of life. They visited the place to find spiritual help and peace of mind for at least the time that they were there and beyond. The visit to the shrine allowed me to have a better day and be a better person, in many ways. For the foregoing reason, I ask you to consider keeping the shrine in the same place so that the many souls devoted to the devotion of Mother Mary can continue to go to a place where always welcoming and open to find solace and help to the need. There is other speaker that I will talk about. I don't know what the topic is, but to me was this very important topic that I want to share with you. And I hope that the committee will make it a just and right decision at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. The next speaker is Angela Carboni. I think Angela is... oh, great. Okay, it says you're on video. You're live.
I have a few pictures of the shrine. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I was very blessed in 2020 to be a tenant at the Carmen Stefano Community Center. I operate a charity that I founded called St. Bernadette's Family Resource Center, and we rented 3 classrooms on the 2nd floor. Along with the 3 classrooms, which was a day program called St. Judith's Academy of the Arts for intellectually and physically challenged adults. I was also offering spiritual retreats for children from grade 2 all the way to grade 12. In 2005, I was blessed to meet Father Basil Cymbalista. When he saw that I was teaching young people about our faith, he and the Basilian Fathers, the superior, the bishop in the house, they welcomed me as a daughter. I had a key to the chapel. I had a key to the library. I was able to bring up to 10,000 youth a year to the Marian Shrine, which are still hoping to go back. Unfortunately, in 2016, the administration that took over the order did not appreciate the people in the house, which were beautiful holy men, one of which had a healing in 2004, which created the beautiful garden with permission of his superiors and the bishop, which was open to the public. And we had a real devastation when they were sent away. They were trying to eliminate me from the building as well, hoping to sell the property. 7 of us went to Rome. I wrote to Pope Francis, who took away the rights to sell the property. So for 7 years, we received written permission from Rome, from their general, to keep attending the property. I was a volunteer prayer coordinator. I did all the prayers from May to October, and thousands kept coming night and day. Within all the years, which is 20 years, almost 18 years, that my involvement has been there, I have personally received a healing where my mother was healed of cancer, and it extended her life 15 years. My assistant received a healing of 4th stage leukemia. He is now 45, should have been dead at 32. But he and another young lady who worked with me had endocrine cancer completely healed. She's on her 3rd child. In May last year, after hearing of hundreds of people with blindness, not ability to walk, different healings of different kinds, a lady came running in May and said, I have a tumor on my breast. Please pray for me. She prayed the rosary, and we prayed that night. About a month later, she came running to me and said, it's gone. They were going to do a biopsy, and there was nothing to remove. So there has been countless healings, and there's also been people who I've witnessed, young people, who while I was praying, some who told me that they would be committing suicide. But the peace they felt, the solace they felt at this beautiful grounds was incredible. The same peace was in the chapel. And unfortunately, it was sold without any warning or any notice to anyone. And we're at 20,000 on a change.org petition, and it's growing weekly. People are devastated. People have said, I managed to fulfill my time in Canada because I was able to visit this shrine. Some of them have said they've been able to cope with serious mental stress, loss of family, because it was open 24/7. So basically people would just go anytime. To this day, I'm praying there. I was never a squatter. I was a volunteer. And people are still coming in the cold. Last Friday night, we had close to 400. Unfortunately, we haven't been treated with any respect from the new owner. And actually, it's not the statue that heals people. We are not idolaters. It's the grounds. It's like Lourdes. And if we're lucky in Toronto, you might get a lot of visits. Lourdes gets thousands and thousands from all over the world, which this place is getting also from out of the country. So I pray that you do consider it heritage. It is of great value, that is much greater than any money can buy, because it gives love, peace, and healing at a very desperate time. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carboni. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, we'll ask the next speaker, Rose Savage. The note here is Rose may be online. The nod.
Good afternoon.
Hi,
Chair,
Rose.
members.
Stephen
Thank you.
Holiday.
Hi. Thank you so much for this
welcome.
opportunity.
You've got 5 minutes. Please begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak today. I emailed my deputation that includes 6 links to documents as it relates to heritage. So the first one is the architect of Emery's Treasured River Emery Village, which was dated March the 2022. The second one was Rivermead House and its owner Percy Gardner Emery Village, which was dated April 2022. Third one is North York residence called Fixes to Carmine Stefano, dated June 2019 and updated on May 27, 2023. Fourth one is Rivermead House and its second owner, Jethro Krang Emery Village, dated May 2022. The fifth one is on tripadvisor.ca, And this is, TripAdvisor has many positive reviews, and a few to highlight between the years 2016 and 2023. States a place of prayer and meditation, and no words can describe how beautiful this place is. And then finally, number 6, blog.to.com, which is Toronto blog, and this was dated October 25th, 2020. The Marian Shrine of Gratitude may not only be known to many in Toronto, but Roman Catholic pilgrims worldwide and knows the name. So I'll get started with my deputation. So licensed real estate professionals and lawyers ensure that the buyer is made aware of anything that's heritage in nature and does the necessary research and due diligence on the land, its type, and its uses as a designated shrine for all to enjoy. In addition, any existing applications with decades of dedication from community members, public officials, as well as formal and informal contracts, agreements in place to support the community's use. This too would be brought to the buyer's attention during inspections and should not have been ignored, nor can buyers attempt to change bylaws immediately during inspections phase and prior to closing the transaction. Formal acknowledgement, understanding, agreement, concurrence, and consent to legal binding signatures respects the heritage applications already in progress at the City of Toronto. This formal consent and sign-off is required in order to proceed with closing the transaction. The legal binding agreement is signed and sealed, and once it's signed, the transaction is closed. This now becomes an informed buyer who cannot dispute, demand immediate change, or escalate to LPAT, OLT, or legal action knowingly. The planning department process, as well as the understanding of the current Planning Act, official plan, and zoning bylaws, requires formal public consultation through committee of the whole and ratified at council are required with any planned changes to existing use. Formal application and permits are made available for all to adhere to and follow a process in order to request any changes after closing date, and only if permitted and the community is heard and is part of the process. So the transaction ignores and disrespects the City of Toronto and the community at large by their failure to adhere to these established processes and the needs of the community. So thank you again for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Savage. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. Our next speaker is Stan Sokolek. Stan, welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You have 5 minutes to speak. Please begin.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is the special picture for me right now because the shrine is gone. So every evening, Angie hosts the prayers. I bring this picture because it's very important. It's very, very important for me. I start the shrine with Father Basil 18 years ago. I put the first stone on this beautiful shrine. And a couple of weeks ago, I was watching them destroying this beautiful place for so many different nationalities around, the Filipinos, Vietnamese, Ukrainians, Polish, Portuguese, Spanish. We had the prayers write it down in different languages. People used to come to the park. They had the access. Right now, we had the 13th of October, we had a big rally, and they closed they sent the security to not let us in. So we had to call the police to open the gate because it's private. They said it's private property. It's not private property. It's still community center. It's still access to the park. Now all the people, they confused. They like this, deers. I used to feed them when they used to come to the shrine because I take care of this place. Last 7 years, I come over there volunteering every day. I commit from Brampton. So now, this is only my picture of the beautiful place they destroy, which whole community, not only Toronto, but around the world, they knew this place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Thank you for joining us today. The next speaker is Olga Rubino.
Chair, just before we do that, can I move that we extend to finish our agenda today? Because I know that if the next speaker will extend, will exceed 12:30, so can we do that now?
Absolutely. Vice Chair Perruzza moves to extend to complete the agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. If I may just ask, is Olga Rubino available?
Yes, I'm available.
Okay, Olga, you're online. Stephen Holliday, Chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council, welcome. You have 5 minutes to speak. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Stephen Halliday, and members of Community Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. My name is Olga Rubino. I'm a retired French Immersion High School department head and supervising principal of Elementary International Languages program with the Toronto Catholic District School Board and have served the community in education for over 40 years. I'm here to support the amending of the listing statement and to support the eventual designation of 3100 Weston Road as a heritage property to be preserved in its original state. The property includes the Tudor-style house, the backyard gardens with the Marian Shrine, an outdoor gazebo prayer room, and the L-shaped red brick building that houses the chapel, church named St. Basil the Great's Church, and the original high school named St. Basil the Great College School. This morning I will present 3 points. Firstly, due process and public access to the property historically. The property has been sold to developers who are from out of province and/or out of country. No opportunity was given to Torontonians, GTA citizens, residents, or members of the community to purchase the property. No due process took place, nor was any notice given to the public that the property at 3100 Weston Road would be available for sale. The public has enjoyed access to the property for more than 20 years. The public should have been informed about the availability of the property for sale prior to any private sale. Much money was donated by the public to create the pathway, the gazebo, the gardens, etc. The place was developed with private donations and the funds of the people. In the common knowledge woven into the collective mindset of the community, the property, albeit private, does have aspects of being a public property with access to everyone. Secondly, Catholic education, a case to honor the historical evolution of education in Ontario and the historical and heritage significance to the City of Toronto. The property has a red brick building, which is the home of St. Basil the Great College School, which was opened in 1962. The school is the first Catholic high school to serve the northwestern area of Toronto. Research papers have been written which give evidence to the important historical movement that took place from the 1800s and the British North America Act to the famous, from the British North America Act to the famous Tiny Township case in 1925 and the ensuing creation of Catholic schools in the province of Ontario. The red brick building houses this school, and it also houses the chapel, the original church, with the same name. The unique historical design of the red brick building, that is an L-shaped building that houses both a chapel, church, and a school, gives concrete evidence of the historical significance of the two intrinsic and interwoven parts of Catholic education in Ontario. Religious practice, represented by the chapel, church, and Ontario curriculum, represented by the school. The preservation of the red brick building as is, therefore, would honor this historical value and significance of the evolution of education that is unique to the province of Ontario. Thirdly, a place of prayer for everyone, a case to honor the historical significance of the Tudor-style building, outdoor gardens, Marian Shrine, and outdoor gazebo prayer room. The Tudor-style building was the home of the Ukrainian Basilian Fathers who served the spiritual needs of everyone in the community. All were welcome, and anyone from near or far and from any faith or cultural background who requested spiritual and personal support, they were all served. At a certain moment in its history as well, as recounted by my aunt, about whom I'll speak in a moment, the homeless were also fed at the property on a weekly basis by volunteers. The Marian Shrine served the spiritual needs of people from all walks of life, regardless of religion, gender, nationality, cultural background, or affiliation. It is a spiritual haven for prayer and for unifying peace for everyone. All are welcome. Many miracles have been recorded after prayer at the Marian Shrine. Many volunteers have developed and maintained the grounds over the years. The place is of historical significance and much needed as a haven of prayer for everyone during these troubled times. We have a gem in our city. Let us keep the beauty that we have and not release this to developers from out of town. On a personal note, my 96-year-old aunt, Esterina Colaburi, is one of the original members of the Daily Rosary Prayer Group, and who, along with many others, donated much time for close to 20 years, and also donated much money to cultivate the spiritual practices there, and also cultivating the actual grounds.
Olga, can I ask you to wrap up because you're over time?
Oh, sure.
Thank
In
you.
conclusion, so I'm concluding, due to the 3 points that I've presented, I feel it's our duty as Torontonians to support the listing and to eventually designate the property as heritage. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. The next speaker is Eva Puznik. Is Eva here or online? Eva's online. Welcome, Eva. Stephen Holliday, Chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. You have 5 minutes to speak. Please begin when you're ready.
There you go. Good afternoon. I've been a resident in this area for just over a decade. One of the first things my partner and I did when we moved to this area was visit the shrine. During my residency here in this neighborhood, our family has lost so many members to illness and violence and crime. And every time we did, my mother and I would visit the shrine. My sister and I would visit the shrine. And we have so much gratefulness for being able to attend a place that gives us solace and peace and hope. And just to have this beautiful place in our neighborhood has been such a wonderful opportunity. And I hope we don't lose it. The grounds itself is beautiful. Any construction on this property would be a detriment to the Humber River Park system, and a gorgeous meeting place for everyone to find comfort. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us today. Our next speaker is Amani Bologno. Is Amani online? Great.
Hello.
Hi, Amani. Stephen Holliday, Chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to speak to the Community Council. Please begin when you're ready.
Hello. Thank you for having me. My name is Amani Bolongo, and my family and I are avid users of the playing fields located behind the 3100 Weston Road property. We, as in me, my children, and other soccer moms and their families, use these fields for the children's soccer games, practice, and for leisure purposes, mostly on weeknights and weekends. So it has come to my attention that since the nightly gatherings of sometimes hundreds of people on this field, that they gather here in protest for the closing of a shrine that they set up many years ago. And as a resident of the local area and property owner, and a law student, I am very concerned. I have some very concerning questions that I would like to put forward to our councillor, Anthony Peruzza, who is supposed to be representing the entire population of Ward 7 and not only a fraction of protesters who want to keep a shrine open. There are many residents of Ward 7 who have no idea that this shrine exists, but we are being negatively impacted by the nightly takeover since August 2023 of the playing fields, which the councillor, Anthony Peruzza, is not only in support of, but a willing participant in these gatherings. I'm going to include photos that will be attached to the deputations in an email so that you can see as proof. The last one being on October 13th, where a feast with tables, food, music, statues, and a large gathering of people was being looked over by the councillor in the presence of police officers. Now, I just want to say this, that whether the shrine is added to the listing or not, or whether it be considered heritage or not, as a property owner, I have some very, very concerning questions that I would like Mr. Peruzza to answer. The shrine sits on a parcel of land originally used, from what I have gathered in my research and also from what I've heard from some of the protesters that I've spoken to and the local community. It was used by the Gardner family and later the fathers of the Brazilian order. Now, according to the letters given to us by the security guards upon the closure of the shrine, it has been made clear by the Brazilian order who sold the property that the shrine was not set up nor supported by the Brazilian order. Instead, it was a lone father who lived in the house who had no authority to set up a shrine with the help of members of the community worshippers, who then, without legal authority, continued for 20 years to occupy the gardens, which are now under legal ownership of, I believe, a company called Evans Court. Now, so I would just like to state that irrespective of the decision made by council to amend the listing to add a shrine, the nightly prayer protests have to stop. My children and other families' children are now fearful of using these playing grounds for what they are supposed to be intended for, playing, not nightly prayer gatherings, informal protests. The organisers of the protest, Deba Harper and Angie Carboni, who just spoke not too long ago, nightly disrupt the usage of the playing fields by illegally setting up bright fluorescent entertainment lights, tables, statues, loud music, and large gatherings, which according to city bylaws require a permit for such gatherings, something that should have been made aware to them by the councillor, Anthony Peruzza. I may also remind Anthony, the vice chair of this meeting, of his legal duties as an elected official representing the population of Ward 7 on behalf of the City of Toronto, that according to Section 224 of the Municipal Act, which states the role of council is to represent the public and to consider the well-being and interests of the municipality. In this matter, the councillor is only representing the demands of the shrine protesters and not representing the safety, needs and well-being of the public of Ward 7 and Torontonians at large. Also, he has not questioned the legitimacy of the Change.org petitioners, to which the volume of the signatories have been found to be grossly fraudulent, and on this basis was used to motion the city councillors to bring forth the matter we hear today. Now, I'm just going to wrap this up. So for this reason, I wholly disagree with the council voting to amend the listing to include a shrine or usage of the gardens, which is now a private property that is no longer within the public legal jurisdiction to enter. And I and hundreds of other families who are completely disappointed with the handling of this matter by the councillor will be submitting a complaint to the Integrity Commission to investigate whether Mr. Peruzza has violated the code of conduct that applies to him as a councillor. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, I'm going to...
I just want to thank her for mentioning me, 15 times in her speech, and for the political ad. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Teresa Lubinsky. I believe that's trustee Teresa Lubinsky. Do we have Teresa online?
The numbers don't match, so I've promoted someone, but I don't know if it's the correct person.
Is Teresa in the room or online?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me? I am on the phone. It's trustee Lubinsky.
Good afternoon, trustee. It's Stephen Holliday, Chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to speak to the council. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, all. My name is Teresa Lubinsky. I am Catholic School Board Trustee for Etobicoke Lakeshore and Parkdale High Park. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Anthony Perusa and Councillor James Pasternak and the rest of the City Council for getting us to this point regarding 3100 Weston Road. The community appreciates that. The motion that was presented last month to propose full protection or river made to the Gardiner family's former country estate, the Marian Shrine of Gratitude, the Carmine Stefano Community Center, a parking lot, and a few soccer fields that are all located at 31 Weston Road, steps away from the banks of the Humber River. The Gardiner's family opened their home River Maid to various charities and organizations such as the Cradle Crutch of York Township, the Red Cross, and Group Number 3 of the Women's Auxiliary of the St. Clair YMCA. The First Nations of North America used the trail on the property as part of the trade route that connected northern and western Canada with the Gulf of Mexico. In 1958, the Ukrainian Basilian Fathers purchased a River Maid to use as a monastery and later filled in the outdoor swimming pool. This area evolved into a prayer garden named the Marian Shrine of Gratitude, where public was welcome. Father Basil Timbalistic created the Marian Shrine of Gratitude, and after he passed away in 2018, the shrine remained public. People from Toronto, all over Ontario, and various parts of the world have visited the shrine. My family and I have been going to the Marian Shrine of Gratitude for about a decade. I know the spiritual value of the place, and so do the people from different cultures that have visited the place. I was fortunate to see the house's interior. The well-maintained original and historical structure is magnificent. It's important for the City of Toronto to acknowledge the historical and cultural significance of River Maid, the architectural value of the home, the significance of the Gardiner family in Toronto's history, and the evolution of the Marian Shrine of Gratitude as a prayer garden loved by thousands of people from various cultures. It uniquely merges old and new values. The city needs to recognize its historic sites through the eyes of new Canadians and immigrants, and River Maid offers that opportunity. Because of my long connection to the Marian Shrine of Gratitude, I began working with my colleagues on the Toronto Catholic District School Board last month in hopes of protecting the property at 3100 Weston Road. Together, we formed a motion that passed unanimously, requesting that both the City of Toronto and the Government of Ontario designate the former Gardiner family summer resort, Basilian Father's House, including the Marian Shrine of Gratitude, located at 3100 Weston Road in Toronto, as a heritage site protected by the Ontario Heritage Act. In this forgotten northwest corner of Toronto, there is no property standing with this wealth of heritage value. As an elected official, I am entrusted to protect people's needs, and I am here to represent the substantial number of my constituents from Etobicoke Lakeshore and Parkdale High Park. The Marian Shrine of Gratitude has been a public place until it was recently sold. It's been used by the public. People of different faiths, people of different religions come to the shrine. The historic value of it is that it has been a public place. There's a petition with over 20,000 signatures. There's a spiritual attachment to this place. From parking lot, there's an asphalt pathway leading to the shrine. It's a public place. Toronto is an immigrant, multicultural city, and the Marian Shrine of Gratitude is a place that unites us all. I hope that the City of Toronto Council will accommodate the public and consider heritage designation at 3100 Weston Road. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Lubinsky. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you for joining us today. Our next speaker is Samuel Babs. Is Samuel available in the chamber or online? Okay.
Hello, hi, can you hear me?
Is that Samuel?
This is Samuel.
Samuel Stephen Holliday, Chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to speak. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here. I'm actually very happy to meet this committee, and I'm glad that Anthony Peruso is actually sitting there as well, because I'd like to direct my speech to you directly. Because of your action, we are going to terminate. By the way, just let me introduce myself a little bit. I'm a property owner, okay, of 3100, and I'd like to make this very clear to the committee. Due to Anthony Peruso's action, our board has decided to terminate the lease to the City of Toronto occupying this property. Now, this is going to result in a lot of people in the City of Toronto suffer the consequences due to the action, the council's action. You've decided to neglect our property rights. You've decided to wage war against your constituent. I believe your job as a councillor is to represent all members of the public in your constituent, not a section part of the constituent.
Mr. Babs, it's Stephen Holliday, the chair. If I could ask you to speak to the item, to mind your comments in favor or opposition of the item, though, please. If I can just ask you to remain focused.
I am talking in focus in favor of the item. The item here is to designate my property and include this illegal shrine on my property, right? That's the item. So I'm talking directly to that. And my objection to this item is that the shrine that everybody's talking about is a complete illegal act on this property. The councillor knows that because I've had a meeting with him in my office, and I've made it very clear to him. And the response from him to my office was, this would never come out of my mouth to the constituent. So we educated you. We told you what our plan is with this property. We made it very clear that we would not develop or destroy the heritage aspect of this property. And we enlightened you as to what our plan are or is with this property. And you responded to us and told us you would never tell the truth to your constituent because you are concerned about the consequences of you speaking the truth, which is you're going to lose both. We feel like you are.
Mr. Chair, look, I can't really understand what he's saying, but I think that what he's saying is very libelous because I don't know what he's doing. I don't.
Chair, I'd like to reclaim my time. Chair. I'd like to reclaim my time. It's my time to talk, and you have no right to talk when I'm talking.
Well, the point of privilege, Mr. Chair, is that we, for example, are bound. We, for example.
I like to reclaim my time, sir. I like to reclaim my time.
He's going to stop the clock, and he's going to give you. He's going. The chair.
Peruso has the floor. Can you just please?
The chair is going to stop the clock and give you your time. So, Mr. Chair, while we, try to conduct ourselves in very sort of parliamentary-like tradition and are very careful in the way we select our words and what we say about individuals and so on, I would caution the deputant to do very much the same because he's in a public forum and I don't know what he's saying. I don't quite understand what he's saying. But it doesn't sound to me either very parliamentary or very truthful. So I would caution him to do that and give him his time back. Absolutely, he's entitled to his 5 minutes. Let him have his 5 minutes.
Mr. Babb, it's Chair Stephen Holliday. So I did pause your time at 2:29. I will add 30 seconds to give you 5:30 because I can't roll the clock back, but that's more than adequate. What I would ask you to do, as raised at the point of privilege by Councillor Peruso, is please bring your comments through the chair, as opposed to speaking to the councillor directly. Please keep them focused to me as the chair. I know that you're aware that you're entitled to speak to this item, and I'm prepared to allow broad latitude. But I do ask you to please remain focused on the particular subject matter before us. And if you are going to speak in a more direct manner, if you could bring those comments through me as the chair. And with that, I will ask that you please continue, and I will reestablish your clock.
Thank you so much. I think the individual we're talking about made a comment that he does not understand what I'm talking about. I think you probably either thick to understand what I'm saying, or because what I'm saying is very clear. Right? Abuse of power, you will be, Chair, we are going to file an investigation into this whole matter. We feel that the so-called 20,000 petitions are fraudulent. We've launched an investigation into these so-called petitions that will be investigated, as well as the overreach of power. We have evidence to support our claim that Anthony Peruzzo is going around to different agencies and asking them to give us a hard time in developing this property, including TRCA. We have evidence of this action, and we feel that this counselor has completely abused his power in this position, and this needs to be investigated. Also, I'd just like to know that this is a private property. Either this property gets designated or section part of this property gets designated as an heritage or not, the public would not be allowed onto this property. This is my property, and I would not let nobody come into this property, right? So you guys, I feel like the city's time has been completely wasted in fighting a lost cause, right? This is a private property, and I'm going to iterate what I'm saying as many times as possible. And no one can force us as private property owner to allow the public to continue to trespass our property. The City of Toronto, we are in dialogue with the City of Toronto Real Estate Department, and we have decided, maybe you might not be aware, maybe you are aware, the City of Toronto is our tenant on this property. They currently live in the community center, and due to Anthony Peruzzo's action, we have decided to terminate the lease to the City of Toronto, which obviously the large public will suffer the consequences of this, because they will be denied access to the playing fields, which everybody enjoys, just like the previous speaker touched on. And we are going to launch a thorough investigation into this matter to expose Anthony Peruzzo's agenda, which is strictly political. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Babb. Are there any questions of the speaker? Deputy Mayor Morley.
Hi there. Thanks for presenting today. I'm curious if you are comfortable sharing what is your intention as the private property owner for the future of this property?
Thank you for the question. We've made it very clear, explicitly clear, that we love the house, the heritage house. We love the property as is. Like I said, there's 3 sections to this property. There's a heritage component to this property. There's a playing field component to this property, and there's a community center section of this property. Our intention is to keep the playing field the way it is and allow the public to continue to enjoy this playing field, as well as keep the heritage property as is. The plan is to move into the heritage property and use the heritage property as a private residence. So I really do not understand what the fight is about. We're not here to destroy the property. What these guys are fighting for is to keep the illegal action, the illegal activity shrine to prevail on the private property. You're waging war against a private owner, a property owner in the City of Toronto. This is very irresponsible. I really cannot understand what the agenda is here. Is the agenda to keep the heritage property heritage, or to keep the shrine? We have to identify exactly what we're fighting for here, right? And if the agenda here is to keep the shrine, then we got to start asking the legitimacy of this shrine. The shrine has no formal organization. This is not a registered charity, right? These guys do not pay any taxes. They're not exempt from paying taxes. We know that. CRA is not aware of this organization, and they are connecting thousands of dollars over the last 20 years from the member public through different donations. That's currently going into private bank accounts, being utilized by this fraudulent.
Thank you. You answered the question.
The leaders of the organization. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of the speaker? Thank you for joining us, Mr. Babs. Our next speaker is Irene Taveras. Welcome to the Community Council, Irene. You have 5 minutes to speak.
Good
You may
afternoon,
begin when you're
Mr.
ready.
Chair, City Council. It's been a very long morning, so I'm going to try to keep this very brief and shine a little bit of a different light and my involvement. I am a supporter of the heritage application and hopefully the future designation of 3100 Weston Road, including the prayer garden and the shrine. My parents met Father Basil 20 years ago approximately, and were involved from the very beginning in the development and strictly really the development and the growth of the shrine. My parents had my father's background, who now is deceased 2 years ago, but my father's background was in engineering. He had run water lines to the gardens for underground sprinklers. My parents had donated the 2 angels that were part of the shrine. They had imported them from Italy at a cost of their own. It was $2,500 for the donation of the angels. They had donated money to the stainless glass that was behind the main statue. They had donated vases to the altar and various other things. In a total of over $5,000 in contributions over the span of the years. But the most amazing part was seeing the growth and the organic development of the shrine. In the very beginning, people just gravitated to it, and it was all different cultures, believers, non-believers, young and old and children, and more people came. Now, I just want to touch base on one point that has been mentioned several times: illegal. My parents initially, when they met Father Basil, had gone to his superior, who was Father Myron. They had specifically asked him permission whether they could donate anything to the altar. I have with me, in a very long, thick file, a letter from that governing body that was overseeing the shrine and the monastery, allowing them to do that. Everything that was done from that point on till Father Myron was taken, he passed away, but till he left his place of being the head of that, the St. Basil's Monastery, everything was done with approval and was done legally. Nobody stepped foot or was allowed to go or not allowed to go without prior approval. It was a place that was welcomed to everybody, and anybody and everybody could come at any given time. So there was nothing illegal ever done. Recently, approximately 7 years ago, the priests, Father Myron and Father Basil, both passed away, and 2 new priests were put into that place. My background, I've been a local realtor for over 12 years. The ownership from a non-for-profit organization had changed by these 2 people to a holding company. And then properties started to be sold. They were in possession of various properties in the city of Toronto. One church on Vaughan Road was sold, but all of them, ironically, were all sold under the impact evaluation and off-market. I'm not here to make any judgment, and I am not here to comment on that. I'm simply stating that. So, I'm here to point out that my parents have contributed a great amount of time, effort, and finances in this particular shrine. The shrine has grown organically, and it sees thousands of community members and people from everywhere, every part of the city coming, whether it's meditating, praying, whatever it is that they're doing, they're there, they're physically there. Here, we've got a large number just supporting. I've been here since 9:30 this morning with my mother, 83 years old, on a walker. It's because we care. There's a large community involvement and support. And the buyer knew about this well prior because he had been seen at the property for months before the property had closed. You can't make a part of 401 private grounds. And I'm a strong believer, to wrap it up, that all great things start from small. I hope that you, the council, and Mr. Chair, see the great value that this holds to so many people. Appreciate that and give us the ability to really make this place what it should be, a place of heritage and a community. Thank you very much.
Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. I have one more speaker on the list here. That is Gianfranco Cristiano. Gianfranco, welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You have 5 minutes. Please begin when you're ready.
Welcome. Good afternoon, Chair, and everybody here. No point of repeating everything that was said today. I think it was all valid points. What I do want the focus to be on is, as you can see and tell by the rhetoric of the new owner, the way that he spoke with Councillor Peruzza and acknowledged his staff goes to show what we are dealing with as a community. He paints us as squatters. We're not squatters. There's a current lease in effect that allows people from the community to come to that property. Whether it's the soccer fields, whether it's the park, community center, it doesn't matter.
Mr.
So,
Cristiano, if I may,
Yeah.
in the same way that I cautioned others, if you could just please address it
To you.
through the
Fair
chair,
enough. Fair enough.
and not
No,
direct
I'm
it to an
trying to.
individual, but
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So it's very important that for you, the chair, and everybody to know that we need the support here. The shrine is not a make-believe. It's not about having an organization like some have mentioned. The shrine, the fact that it was put together with the priest that was there, given a blessing by the bishop at the time, with the community members, goes to show the validity of it. It was mentioned that the Archdiocese of Toronto does not recognize it, and that the Vatican does not recognize it. That is not true. The Archdiocese of Toronto, Cardinal Collins led Mass there. If anybody knows about priests of the Catholic Church, you are not allowed to lead Mass outside of the church, even to wed somebody, without permission from the Archdiocese. There has been multiple priests come to that property and led Mass over the years. It was recognized. The problem is the Archdiocese does not own that property. The property was owned by a separate entity, the Ukrainian Epicarchy of Toronto. So that's why a lot of people say, oh, or actually I should say it was mentioned, I'm not going to say who, but you know who, that the property was not recognized by the church. Not true at all. There's been countless videos, pictures of how priests, cardinals, people from Vatican came to that site and honored that site. The problem is they don't own it. And when it was sold, and we contacted the Archdiocese saying, hey, like, you know, is there any way that you can help us? They said that we had no knowledge that it was being sold, because if it was, we definitely would have been interested, because they understand the sacredness of that site. It's nothing that was make-believe by a few community members putting some statues together. I'll put statues in my backyard like it was mentioned, but miracles at that site cannot be moved, just like grave sites are not moved. The fact that there's statues there that was put forth by the community made that garden even more beautiful. He speaks about making it, keeping a heritage site, no problem. The Rivermead House is here. The shrine is here. The field is here. So you're going to keep that, you're going to keep the field, and what are you going to do in the middle? That's all heritage. That whole part there, you cannot build there because of where it is, okay? We have to understand that the Rivermead, he claims that he wants to keep the house. There's already been videos that he had disposal bids at that house and started doing some construction inside the house. And the bylaw officers were called to stop it. So at the end of the day, we have to really see, and I understand, I'm not putting blame on him, maybe he was misled, whatever it is. All I can tell you is that as a community, the history here is that the community kept that site alive. We got solar panels to light up the place, cameras there. We had stand that goes there, buys candles, and we give him money for the candles. There's no illegal things going on there. The fact that people donated statues, taking care of the property, people coming and gardening there. There are no squatters there. Grandmothers, my aunt, my mother, women that come there and pray. From different religious backgrounds too. I've seen people, because at the end of the day, it was a place of solace. It's not what he says about that we're squatters. No. And the lady mentioned about being on the soccer field. No. The reality is that we were given permission by the owner to be on the hill since he closed everything off. We do not go on that field unless there's no games going on. When there's no games going on, 2 times, because it was a larger gathering, and they were organized gathering, because that's what happens with the Rosary, that we go on that field. Every night, we don't step foot on that field. We have videos. There's a Facebook page you can go and check out. We are on the hill. We are way far away from the field. So we don't stop anybody from playing soccer, nothing. I just think that it's very important for this council to know the beauty of this place, the religious aspect, the heritage, the historical value. It all sums in together. At the end of the day, we want to work with the new owners, whether he wants to work with us or not, whether it's a ship that sailed. We need the help from this council to help the community defend what is truly a historical and heritage place. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none. That's the end of the list. I will ask if there is anyone that has been missed that wanted to speak. Seeing none. Thank you. Questions of staff?
Just very briefly, I know that that Gary Medema is here. Just if you could, in a nutshell, really sort of sum up what we are doing here today. Okay. Because I know people have been all over the map on it. So.
Thank you. So this property was listed on the North York Inventory of Heritage Properties in 1997, moved on the City of Toronto's list of properties heritage registered in 2006. Because of that early listing statement, it doesn't account for the full values that we see today of the property. So this is simply an amending of the listing statement. It's not changing the status of the property. It's just amending the listing statement so that it's referencing the full dimensions of the property, including any values that might be related to the school, as well as the rear yard, and of course, the shrine as it relates to a community value.
I know, that's it.
Seeing none. Question, Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to staff. Thank you for being with us today. Question for you as it relates to this item before us. What are the impacts of us moving forward with this listing, both for the shrine, as we've seen and heard very clearly, a strong community of support, and we also have heard on the opposite side of the existing property owner and their intentions. What are the impacts of this listing, of us moving forward with this listing today on both groups?
Thanks for that question. So what listing really means 2 things, I think, in this scenario. First of all, it requires a property owner to give the City of Toronto 60 days notice if they intend to demolish a structure or building on the property. So that's number 1, that's all listings. What a revised listing statement does for us in this case is when the owner himself has said today that they are contemplating plans for change for the property, a revised listing statement simply speaks more clearly of broader values to the site that will need to be considered as a part of any development application. And in particular, a development application on a listed property must include a heritage impact assessment. And that document is something that is produced by the owner of the property with heritage consultants to speak to the values of the site and to speak to how their plans may or may not impact the values of the site. So we start on a clearer level and a clearer playing field is the intention of this. That's really what this does today.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right. Members of council wishing to speak. Councillor Peruzza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you've heard it really clear in terms of what we are doing here today. We are amending a listing statement that was established in 1997. I'm going to ad lib here, and I'm assuming that in 1997, the house was listed because I think the school closed down. St. Basil's the Great College School, I believe, ceased to be an active high school. My former alma mater, I might add. that listing was migrated to the City of Toronto in 2006 under the amalgamated city. But you'll see in the report, the listing statement is sort of focuses in on Rivermead Cottage. Today's amended statement, as you've heard from Mr. Medema, is that it now becomes much broader in terms of looking at the entire site in terms of its value. That's what we're doing here today. That's what the action of this community council will seek to do. I understand that folks are looking for a villain in this story, but I just want to simply say this. Prior to July of this year, this was the activity that transpired here, that took place here for the past 18 years, since 2006. So for 18 plus years, people have been congregating onto this site, peacefully praying, finding that spiritual solace that people are looking for. And they've done it with the knowledge and blessings of the former owners, the Basilian order, the Basilian order that owned the site. So while I forget his names, the Mr. Babs, I believe. While Mr. Babs is looking for a villain, Peruzza was invited on site.
Counselor?
Yeah.
Through the chair.
No. Through the chair, Mr. Chair. Yeah, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to take the bait and do that. But I came onto the site in July. Why? Because the site was in transition to be sold, and the new owners had decided to take a hardline approach to the shrine and to the peaceful assembly of people onto the shrine. Something that they had been doing for a couple of decades. And the new owners then decided to bring security onto the site, and with that security begin to sort of push people out and try to limit people's access to the site. They've closed the site. And what we have done is said to folks, this is a community center, and when the fields are available, which have lighting on them, because they're sports fields. When the fields are available, you can assemble on the fields to recite the rosary. Reciting the rosary has been labeled by Mr. Babs, and I believe Ms. Barlongo labeled that a protest. Since when did reciting the rosary and paying homage to God escalate to being a protest, a political assembly, a protest? So we need to, I will wrap up, Mr. Chair, because I know we've belabored this somewhat. So I would just simply say to the new owners that this is a complicated site. This is a site which you obviously want to do some things with. To just simply come in and talk to us about it and we can figure out together hand in hand, how we go forward to make sure that your rights as a private property owner and the community's desire to carry on with an activity that they've been you're doing here for several decades now, that those things are able to coexist with each other. And I think that that's all we are looking for. We're looking for a peaceful way forward with you. And if today is the first step in that process, then I think we'd all welcome that. Thank you.
Councillor Perruzza, just for clarity for the committee, there is a report and a supplementary.
I'm moving the report. There's a supplementary? Sorry.
There is a supplementary from the Toronto Preservation Board.
Correct, yes.
Are you moving that as well?
I am,
Okay.
yes.
So I'll just check. Any other speakers? Deputy Mayor Morley?
Just very quickly, and I just want to commend, through you, Mr. Chair, my colleague, Councillor Perruzza. This is a very intense, we can feel the energy on both sides of this issue. And I just want to thank Edith, who's in the audience today, because I had the pleasure of coming to the shrine at Edith's invitation and have had a chance to experience it in person. But what's clear to me, despite whatever we do here as community council today, is there's folks are very far away from one another. This listing will not guarantee access, will not, necessarily change anything within the current property owner. And it really is going to take some mediation, some leadership, and coming together for folks, I think, to come up with, a solution forward here. So I'd like to again commend my colleague for his stated desire to play that role and to bring folks together. And I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll ask just for a bit of guidance on the sequence. 2 votes. Okay. All right. All right. Okay, on the supplementary report. Even the computer's tired. Okay, the supplementary report is up there. On the supplementary, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. On the item itself, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Madam Clerk, did we get that right? Okay, thank you. Members, there is an additional item from Councillor Perruzza. That is... it's been introduced here. If you just give me a second to scroll through this computer. EY 8.27, no stopping on Rathburn Boulevard. Questions to staff? No questions of staff to speak. Councillor Perruzza?
Mr. Chair, there's just some minor parking changes in front of a school where the school is experiencing some parking issues in the morning, and I'm hoping that you support them.
Any members wishing to speak? All right, Councillor Perruzza moves the recommendations in his letter. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Members, I was informed that there was a member of the public that did not get an opportunity to speak on EY 8.7, which is...
Mr. Chair, point of order, just before you proceed that, I know that people are leaving. I just wanted to thank...
Point of order.
Sorry. I just wanted to thank the community members that came out today to follow this issue along. It's really good to see them out here. And you can tell by the numbers of people that showed up today, not all of them spoke, obviously, because we'd still be here well into the late afternoon if they did. But they came here, and it shows how important this issue is to them. Because at the end of the day, Mr. Chair, you know that culture and heritage lives in the hearts and minds of people. And if this site lives in the hearts and minds of all these folks that that came here today, then from my perspective, Mr. Medema will know that that's really at the heart of it all. So I thank you all very much for coming. It's really important that you do.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, members, I'm going to propose to reopen EY 8.7, which is 5 Gaylord Avenue, a request for fence exemption to allow a member to speak. May I have a motion to reopen? Deputy Mayor Morley, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. The item is reopened. So we are now at EY 8.7, 5 Gaylord Avenue, request for fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. And the speaker that I have registered is Daryl Sedgman. Is Daryl in the chamber? Great. Hi, Daryl.
Hi there.
Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You have 5 minutes to speak. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. I appreciate you reopening this. I understand my knowledge of how this works didn't work out so well today, so I appreciate it. Before you today, I have a request for fence exemption for 2 minor variances to the pool enclosure fence. The majority of the fence, as it has been built, conforms to the requirements of what fences should be for enclosure of the pool, with the exception of 2 small areas. There is a variance request for at the top of the stairs where there is an opening for the fence, where it is currently at 1.1 meters in height, in about an inch of lip, and I understand that that's to be 1.2. So there's a request there for a minor variance. The other is encroachment of a built-in fireplace, or rather a barbecue, and that also encroaches on the fence for the covered porch area. As mentioned, the other areas of the fence are within conformance to the requirement of pool enclosure. And I do have 11 neighbors who have also come forward to offer their support for what we're proposing. There are 2 actions that have been advised by staff on this file. One is to reject the request as submitted. The second, as a part of the description or comments from the submission, says that the alternate recommendation would be to grant the fence exemption as requested, and require that the fence remains in properly maintained form until it's to be replaced, in which case it would then need to conform with the requirements. So today I'm asking council to approve that second that second option.
Thank you.
And I'm available for questions should you have any. Thank you.
Any questions? May I pass the chair, Vice Chair? Thank you. Just a couple of questions. Thank you for speaking to us. Are you the owner of the?
I am the homeowner, yes. Okay. My name is Daryl Sedgman.
Did you build the enclosure?
I did not, no. I had, I mean, we've been building for about 2.5 years, so the fence enclosure that surrounds the property was built by a professional fence building team. They conformed with proper automatic gate closure and locking. The glass fence enclosure was built by the same team that did glass throughout the house. Again, we have an engineer's report which, as far as the glass is concerned, it does conform from the building of the glass, and there's just certain nuances which then put it outside of that.
Who prepared the design for the fence enclosure?
The design for the hardscaping on the property was done by a landscape architecture team that we had employed underneath our overall architecture team for the home, which was David Small Design, which was the overall architecture. And we had a separate landscape architecture design the fence enclosure.
So you had someone design it?
Correct.
And someone built it for you?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And so the deficiencies was the height and the placement of certain climbable items?
The deficiencies were nuanced with it would be the location of where the fence was in accordance to some of the retaining walls and also in accordance to the barbecue build, which were done by separate developers.
And we got pictures of that.
Correct.
In the report. Okay, those were all my questions. Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, I thank you for speaking to us today. Earlier today, I moved to adopt the staff recommendations, which was to refuse the application. never easier it's never easy to do that. These are very important situations. These are about safety, in particular safety for children. In this case, there's a couple of things I noticed. That was some of the fence enclosure was changed somehow through the process and changed from a 1.5 meter iron fence to glass, and in that, I guess a deficiency occurred near one of the gates. The remedy of that, of course, is to put the right height piece of glass to deal with that. And then another situation occurred where there was a built-in barbecue and then a sort of a side cabinet that was built very close to the glass enclosure. And again, if you look really carefully at it, you'll see even the designer put minimum height 1.2 meter glass enclosure. Somewhere along the lines, it was built to the way it is today. And I regret the homeowner is now in an awkward position where they've got a product that doesn't conform to what the standards are. And in this case, it sounds like professionals designed it and built it. So I am going to, again, move what I did before, which was to refuse the application. I hope the homeowner is able to work with the people that installed it so that they install it in conformance with the requirements. If they're experienced in this, you know, and I guess maybe it's a reputation issue, is making sure that they adhere to the code. I hope they can fix it for you. But I think at the end of the day, you will have a much safer situation, and I hope that's okay. With that, on the staff recommendations, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried, and I thank you for your patience in waiting as we went through all the pieces. Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have bills? Great. May I have a member move the bills, please? Deputy Mayor?
Move that bills 928 to 946 prepared for the October 16th, 2023 meeting 8 of the Etobicoke York Community Council be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Another volunteer for the second one? Deputy Mayor?
Moving that confirmatory bills to confirm that legislative proceedings of the Etobicoke York Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 8 on October 16th, 2023 be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That item is carried. That was the last. Vice Chair Perruzza, motion to adjourn. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you to everybody. Appreciate everyone's contribution today.